Gang Yu defeats Huang after a devastating battle that leaves the battlefield in ruins. Despite losing, Huang mocks the fallen heroes, revealing that Gang Yu's entire 5-member team was killed during the fight. Gang Yu refuses to kill him, honoring the promise he made to his teammates to bring Huang to justice instead of taking revenge. Even so, he can't shake the feeling that sparing Huang was a mistake. News reports announce that Huang, considered the world's most dangerous criminal, has been sentenced to death. His powers are sealed with a suppression device, and he is transferred to the 5th basement of ruthless prison. The broadcast also honors the heroes who died fighting him, including Gang Yu's teammates, whose funeral is held that night. Recovering in a hospital, Gang Yu struggles with guilt until his brother Gang Ho, a correctional officer at ruthless prison, reminds him that he fulfilled his duty as a hero. Gang Yu remembers a promise he made to his team leader, Ryasa. She believed that a hero's duty is to save lives, not take them, and that even the worst criminals deserve a trial. Gang Ho shares the same belief, explaining that only the law has the authority to execute criminals. He secretly reveals that Huang's execution is scheduled for the following week, and assures Gang Yu that justice will be served. 1 week later, tragedy strikes. Huang survives his execution, while Gang Ho is killed during the incident. As Gang Yu mourns his brother's death, ruthless prison's warden Siyun approaches him with surveillance footage from the execution chamber, showing exactly what happened that day. The footage shows Huang being escorted to the execution room by several officers, including Gang Ho. Huang notices the resemblance between Gang Ho and Gang Yu and repeatedly tries to provoke him. Gang Ho remains focused on his duty, admitting that every execution weighs heavily on his conscience. Although carrying out executions is part of his job, the guilt never fades, and the faces of those he executed continue to haunt him in his dreams. As the execution begins, a sudden power outage plunges the prison into darkness. An unidentified EMP disables Huang's power suppression device, allowing him to regain his abilities. Huang immediately breaks free and attacks the officers. His power causes a prison guard's body to swell and explode on contact. Panic spreads through the execution chamber as officers desperately call for backup. Gang Ho bravely confronts Huang with only his baton. He reminds Huang that he has been sentenced to death and continues fighting despite the overwhelming odds. Huang easily overpowers him, crushing his body into a sphere of flesh before escaping. The sight leaves Gang Yu horrified as he watches the recording. Siyun explains that the mysterious EMP disabled the suppression devices throughout ruthless prison, freeing countless superpowered inmates. Although the prisoners remain trapped inside the prison, many correctional officers are still stranded with them. She asks Gang Yu to enter the prison and stop the riot, despite it being the day of his brother's funeral. Gang Yu agrees, but only under one condition. On the prison's ground floor, nearly 300 inmates are trying to break through the main gate, while others fight among themselves. As the gate slowly opens, Gang Yu reflects on the beliefs that shaped him. His teammates taught him that heroes exist to save lives, while his brother believed that only the law has the right to execute criminals. Gang Yu decides that he will no longer enter the prison as a hero, but as an executioner. The gate finally opens, and a powerful gust of wind knocks the prisoners backward as Gang Yu steps inside wearing a correctional officer's uniform. He announces that, starting today, he is their new correctional officer. Shocked inmates immediately transform into monsters and attack him, but Gang Yu destroys them with a single punch, tearing their bodies apart and leaving the remaining prisoners frozen in fear. Using the prison's intercom, Gang Yu declares that under government orders, he will carry out his brother's duty from the ground floor all the way to the 5th basement. The story then briefly reveals powerful prisoners isolated across every level of the prison. While on the 5th basement, Huang sits atop a pile of dead officers wearing Gang Ho's cap. As Gang Yu arrives, Huang welcomes him, and Gang Yu vows to execute every last prisoner inside the facility. The prisoners panic the moment they hear the word execution. They demand to know if Gang Yu actually plans to kill them. Gang Yu reminds them that they never hesitated to take innocent lives, so they have no right to fear death now. Instead of showing remorse, the inmates begin comparing their crimes. One boasts about killing 12 people, another claims only 7 murders, while another insists he only killed 5 before accusing someone else of committing kidnappings, rape, and murder. The prisoners demand lawyers and argue that Gang Yu has no authority to decide their fate. Amid the chaos, a prisoner named Yuan Choi, imprisoned for the rape and murder of 8 victims, sees an opportunity to escape. Using his super speed, he rushes past Gang Yu, convinced he has gotten away. In an instant, Gang Yu catches him with a kick that crushes his head. Choi's body collapses to the floor, instantly silencing every prisoner. Gang Yu gives the remaining inmates a choice. They can willingly put their suppression devices back on, return to their cells, and wait for execution, or they can die where they stand. Fear spreads through the crowd, but one prisoner, Hilasan, rejects the offer. He points out that both choices end in death, so they might as well fight for their freedom. Gang Yu coldly replies that this isn't a negotiation, it's mercy. Some prisoners consider surrendering to buy themselves more time, but Hilasan uses his ability to amplify the emotions of everyone around him. He convinces the inmates that Gang Yu is only one man, and that together they can overwhelm him. He even boasts that teamwork once allowed him to kill a second-tier hero, restoring the prisoners' confidence and pushing them toward rebellion. Gang Yu recognizes Hilasan as the man the warden warned him about. Earlier, she explained how Ruthless prison is divided by threat level. The ground floor houses more than 300 murderers. The first basement contains over 100 criminals capable of threatening an entire town. The second basement holds more than 30 criminals dangerous enough to destroy a city. The third basement contains 10 national-level threats. The fourth basement holds 5 criminals capable of threatening an entire continent. And the fifth basement houses only 3 prisoners, including A Chuang, whose powers endanger the entire world. She also explains that criminals on different floors rarely cooperate with one another. The story briefly shifts to the second basement, where 2 siblings continue keeping both guards and prisoners under control, forcing inmates to confess their crimes. Meanwhile, on the fifth basement, A Chuang reaches a prisoner named Ahura. Still carrying what remains of Gang Ho's body, A Chuang casually remarks that he didn't expect anyone else to be there, and decides to pass the time before Gang Yu arrives. Back on the ground floor, the warden explains that the situation there is different because every prisoner follows Hilasan. His ability to manipulate emotions makes him the true leader of the entire floor. Gang Yu confronts him, recounting his crimes in detail. Hilasan led an attack on a hospital with 30 criminals, killing 8 people, including 7 civilians and a second-tier hero. Hilasan proudly corrects him, revealing that the true death toll was 10 because the female hero had twins. Gang Yu contacts the warden and asks how much force he can use without destroying the prison. She guarantees that the facility is built to withstand anything he can unleash and tells him not to hold back. Hearing this, Gang Yu decides to fight at full power. Hilasan mocks Gang Yu, claiming he was never an important member of the equality team, and accusing him of sacrificing his teammates just to capture A Chuang. He vows to send Gang Yu to join them. Using his ability once again, Hilasan pushes the prisoners into a frenzy and orders all of them to attack. As hundreds of transformed prisoners charge forward, Gang Yu launches a single kick that releases red and black energy, instantly cutting through countless criminals. Another kick slams into the ground, blasting everyone around him into the air with such force that the entire prison shakes. Even Chuck Fielder, a prisoner locked inside the ground floor isolation room, immediately realizes that only Gang Yu could possess that level of power. With the remaining prisoners knocked down, Gang Yu activates Mode 1, creating a massive blade-like flash of energy. Within seconds, every prisoner on the ground floor is cut in half. Hilasan dies in disbelief as countless bodies collapse across the floor, leaving the entire level covered in corpses. Gang Yu then walks toward the isolation room and calmly reports to the warden that every prisoner on the ground floor has been executed. Gang Yu encounters 2 more prisoners and gives them the same choice: put their suppression devices back on and return to their cells, or die where they stand. One inmate immediately charges at him, but Gang Yu kills him with a single kick that crushes his head. Terrified, the second prisoner pretends to surrender. As soon as Gang Yu hands him the suppression device, he launches a surprise attack, believing no one would willingly wear it again. The attack does nothing. Gang Yu stands completely unharmed. Gang Yu recalls a villain his teammate Tommy once captured. That villain believed physical-type heroes would never understand the thrill of killing with their own hands because they usually fought from a distance. Gang Yu dismisses that idea. With one punch, he blows the prisoner's head apart, saying it feels no different than cracking an egg. Gang Yu then reaches the ground floor isolation cell, where Chuck Fielder has been waiting for him. Chuck immediately recognizes Gang Yu, saying he knew the commotion outside could only have been caused by him. 3 years have passed since they last met, but Chuck is certain Gang Yu hasn't forgotten him. Chuck was imprisoned for cannibalism and isolated from the other inmates because of his crimes. Chuck mocks Gang Yu for becoming a correctional officer, but Gang Yu gives him the same choice as everyone else: wear the suppression device or die. Chuck removes his mask and says he always knew they would meet again. He remembers the day the equality team captured him, when Gang Yu saw a cooking pot filled with freshly prepared human flesh. Furious, Gang Yu almost killed him on the spot, but his teammates, including their leader Rayasa, stopped him before he crossed the line. Chuck reminds Gang Yu that he looked anything but happy when he was forced to spare him. When Chuck refuses to answer, Gang Yu decides that means he has chosen death. Chuck asks if Gang Yu knows why he kills people, but before he can finish, Gang Yu slices off his head. Gang says he has no interest in listening to anything Chuck has to say. Moments later, Chuck reveals it was only an illusion. Chuck explains that he kills people so they will never forget him. His ability allows him to leave himself permanently in his victims' memories, ensuring they remember him even after death. He claims he remembers every person he has ever killed and begins creating magical projections to demonstrate his power. Before he can continue, Gang Yu cuts off his arm, leaving Chuck screaming in pain. Gang Yu remarks that this constant talking is exactly why Chuck was locked in isolation. Chuck laughs and asks whether Gang Yu remembers everyone he has killed on his way through the prison. Just then, he uses his illusion magic to recreate Gang Yu's fallen teammates. Rayasa, Mago, Hub, and the others appear before him, pleading for him to stop. Gang Yu hesitates for only a moment before cutting straight through every illusion. Chuck is stunned that Gang Yu didn't hesitate to strike down the images of his own teammates. Gang Yu calmly explains that they were only illusions. He then cuts Chuck in half as well. As Chuck dies, Gang Yu says he is no longer a hero, he is now a correctional officer. With his final breath, Chuck rejects that claim, calling Gang Yu a monster no different from H-Wang. The story shifts to the fifth basement, where H-Wang stands over Ahura, disappointed that she never put up a fight. Growing impatient while waiting for Gang Yu to reach him, H-Wang considers heading upstairs himself. Outside the prison, the story finally reveals the group responsible for the EMP attack. A team has been watching the prison from a safe distance. Its leader is Sinka, accompanied by Canis and Gato. When Canis asks if they should move in, Sinka watches the monitor and announces that he has arrived. Confused, Canis asks who she means. Sinka replies that the man they are waiting for will become her husband. Outside the prison, Sinka watches Gang Yu through a monitor and declares that he will become her husband. Canis is confused, reminding her that she previously chose H-Wang. Gato agrees, pointing out that they launched the EMP attack specifically to free H-Wang for her. Canis also argues that Gang Yu is still a hero and an obstacle to humanity's evolution. Sinka disagrees, saying Gang Yu was once a hero, but not anymore. When told she has to choose between the two, she decides to leave it to fate. Whoever survives the battle between Gang Yu and H-Wang will become her choice. Back inside the prison, the warden arrives after Gang Yu finishes executing Chuck Fielder. She notes that he cleared the entire ground floor without wasting any time, but warns him that the prisoners on the lower levels are far more dangerous. She suggests he rest before continuing, but Gang Yu refuses and orders her to open the next gate immediately. Before opening the door, the warden asks Gang Yu for one favor. She has detected distress signals from surviving correctional officers trapped in the lower levels and asks him to rescue them if possible. At the same time, the story briefly shifts to the second basement, where several prisoners are floating through the air while a group of surviving officers, including Jia Hong, struggles to escape. Gang Yu asks the warden if she knows how many officers are still alive on each floor. She explains that every communication device below the first basement has been destroyed, except one. The story then cuts to the fifth basement, where a lone officer desperately runs for his life while H-Wang chases him, carrying Ahura with him. H-Wang kills the officer with his pop ability. The warden points out that the fifth basement communication system is the only one still functioning, almost as if H-Wang wants everyone to witness what is happening there. Hearing this, Gang Yu decides he cannot waste any more time. The warden orders the first basement gate to be opened and reminds Gang Yu once again that the enemies ahead are on an entirely different level. The moment the door begins to open, several prisoners launch a coordinated ambush. They reveal they expected Gang Yu to come and attack him with their powers all at once. While Gang Yu is surrounded, another prisoner grabs the warden hostage, proudly announcing that he has finally captured her. He turns to celebrate with his allies, only to discover that every one of them has already been killed. Corpses cover the entire floor. Before he can react, Gang Yu appears above him and drives him into the ground with a devastating punch. The impact knocks the warden to the floor as well. Gang Yu helps the warden up and tells her never to stand beside him whenever another prison gate is opened, because it is too dangerous. She agrees and informs him that Tomoki, whom Tommy captured in the past, is being held in the first basement isolation cell. Gang Yu replies that he already knows and heads toward the isolation block. Inside the first basement isolation area, several prisoners discuss the explosions outside, believing someone has successfully escaped. Tomoki immediately dismisses the idea, saying none of them escaped. She argues that no ordinary prisoner could create that level of destruction and reminds them that she warned them from the beginning, but nobody listened. Tomoki is Tommy's sister and a former hero who is now imprisoned for killing 28 heroes. Sitting casually on top of a guard, she mocks the other prisoners for relying on brute force instead of intelligence. One inmate loses his temper and threatens to kill her. Tomoki laughs, questioning whether any of them have ever fought, let alone killed, a real hero. She points out that if they had, they would never have ended up in their current situation. The enraged prisoner transforms and attacks, but Tomoki effortlessly slices him in half. She reminds the others that, as a hero, she captured countless villains and learned exactly how to fight superpowered opponents. She then admits she later used those same skills to kill many heroes. Finally, she invites the remaining prisoners to join her, promising to teach them how to defeat people with superpowers, because she already knows everything about Gangyu Seo's abilities. The prisoners ask Tomoki how she knows so much about Gangyu's abilities. She explains that she spent years working as a hero and is familiar with nearly every hero's powers. One prisoner, Speech, argues that it doesn't matter because Gangyu belonged to the equality team and was considered a first-tier hero, while Tomoki was only third-tier. Tomoki explains that after Reiyasa became the leader of equality, she completely reformed the hero system. She banned heroes from killing villains, encouraged heroes to train together, and abolished the entire tier system. Since the ranking system disappeared before Gangyu joined equality, nobody knew how strong he actually was. Rumors spread that he only joined because of powerful connections or because he had a secret relationship with Reiyasa. Speech admits he never saw Gangyu fight before, but points out that Gangyu wiped out the entire ground floor in minutes, proving he is at least as strong as a second-tier hero. Tomoki dismisses that argument, saying the ground floor only housed weak criminals and that anyone on the first basement could have done the same. The prisoners on this floor are vastly more dangerous, with each one responsible for thousands of deaths. Speech alone has killed 35 people. Tomoki clarifies that she is not underestimating Gangyu. She believes he is incredibly powerful, but she also believes she knows his weakness. Confident that they can exploit it, she convinces the prisoners to work together. Although Speech remains skeptical, he eventually agrees to follow her plan, and the other prisoners join as well. Tomoki explains that superpowers are divided into 3 categories. Physical type abilities enhance the user's body. Creation type abilities allow users to create objects from nothing. Special type abilities include every power that doesn't fit into the other 2 categories. Soon, Gangyu arrives outside their cells. The prisoners are already waiting for him. Using his brainwave communication ability, Speech informs Tomoki that Gangyu has arrived. Tomoki recalls watching Gangyu train years ago. During one training session, she noticed that he never bothered to dodge attacks from a combat robot. From that moment on, she concluded that Gangyu's greatest weakness was his habit of standing still instead of avoiding attacks. As Gangyu offers the prisoners the same choice as before, the ambush begins. Special-type users attack him from every direction, yet Gangyu doesn't move an inch. Speech confirms that Tomoki's prediction was correct. However, Tomoki knows Gangyu isn't standing still because he can't dodge. He simply doesn't believe he needs to. Her real trap comes next. A prisoner named Million, who has killed 21 people, uses his ability to lock objects onto a target. Hidden among the attacks are dozens of power suppression devices taken from dead guards. The devices wrap around Gangyu's body like bandages, until nearly 30 of them are attached to him. Before the battle, Speech questioned whether devices designed for first basement prisoners would work on Gangyu, but Tomoki was confident. 10 devices could restrain a second-tier hero, 15 could stop a first-tier hero, so 30 should have completely sealed Gangyu's powers. The prisoners celebrate, believing Gangyu is finally powerless. But Tomoki's first mistake quickly becomes obvious. Gangyu is far stronger than she ever imagined. He effortlessly shatters every suppression device attached to his body before charging straight into the prisoners. Even Tomoki is stunned as Speech reports that all 30 devices have been destroyed. Panic spreads, and many prisoners begin fleeing. Tomoki immediately orders Phase 2. Through Speech's telepathy, the prisoners receive the command and begin taking surviving guards hostage, hoping Gangyu will hesitate if innocent lives are at stake. Instead, Gangyu kills the attackers without hesitation. Tomoki's second mistake was assuming he relied only on physical strength. In reality, Gangyu also possesses special type abilities. As one prisoner dies, he accuses Tomoki of never mentioning that Gangyu had another type of power. The remaining prisoners lose all hope. Some beg to surrender and promise to wear their suppression devices, but Gangyu kills them before they can finish speaking. Tomoki's third and final mistake was believing she could challenge an opponent who was far beyond her level. Watching every prisoner die, Speech completely loses his composure. He demands to know why Tomoki's plan failed and asks if she has any backup strategy. Tomoki is equally shocked. She cannot understand how Gangyu destroyed 30 suppression devices so easily, or why someone with that level of power never fought villains directly in the past. Frustrated and confused, she has no answers. Speech panics and declares that he will surrender by putting on a suppression device. Tomoki, furious that he questioned her, kills him on the spot. She lashes out, insisting that he had no right to criticize her, while continuing to obsess over how Gangyu broke free from every suppression device. Just then, she notices the guard she had been sitting on trying to escape. As she moves in to kill him, her arm is suddenly sliced off. She turns around and finds Gangyu standing behind her. The guard escapes, while Gangyu calmly asks Tomoki if she has any final words. Tomoki simply laughs and begins to respond. Tomoki laughs when she learns that the entire equality team has been wiped out. She asks Gangyu if it's true, and he confirms it. Hearing that her younger sister Tommy also died fills her with mixed emotions. Tommy was the one who captured her and sent her to prison. Tomoki says she warned her sister never to become a hero, but Tommy refused to listen. Tomoki is shocked that Gangyu has started killing people. She reminds him that Rayasa completely transformed the hero industry to stop heroes from taking lives, and accuses him of destroying everything Rayasa fought to build. Gangyu remains silent. The story then reveals Tomoki's past. After becoming a hero, she quickly realized that the hero system was deeply flawed. Heroes routinely killed villains, and their authority was so absolute that even civilian casualties during missions went unpunished. One incident perfectly captured that reality when a hero killed both a villain and the hostage he was using, then simply declared the mission complete. Tomoki originally became a hero because of her younger sister, Tommy. Since Tommy had no superpowers, Tomoki always protected and supported her. Tommy admired her deeply and considered her the best sister anyone could have. But Tomoki's motives gradually changed. Saving people no longer satisfied her because it gave her a sense of superiority over everyone else. Eventually, she killed a villain during a mission. That first murder gave her a feeling unlike anything she had ever experienced, and she became addicted to it. Unable to stop herself, she began murdering villains, civilians, and eventually even fellow heroes. She admits that she simply came to enjoy killing people. Watching her victims beg for mercy became part of the thrill. Over time, Tommy noticed Tomoki returning home later every night with the smell of blood on her clothes. Suspicious, she secretly followed her one day. What she found horrified her. Tomoki had murdered countless people. Instead of showing remorse, Tomoki casually asked Tommy if she wanted to join her. When Tommy refused, Tomoki prepared to kill another victim anyway. At that moment, Tommy stopped her by grabbing her arm with a chain, unlocking her own power for the first time. From then on, Tommy became a hero dedicated to hunting down her sister, who had become a notorious villain. Eventually, Tommy captured Tomoki and placed her under arrest. Even then, Tomoki questioned why Tommy called her a villain instead of her sister. She mocked Tommy's summoning ability, claiming that people without physical-type powers would never understand the feeling of killing someone with their own hands. Tommy rejected her completely, declaring that the person standing before her was no longer her sister. Back in the present, Tomoki asks Gangyu how Tommy died, and whether she died peacefully. Gangyu tells her that Tommy was killed during the battle against H-Wang. In her final moments, she was calling out for Tomoki and asking her sister to save her. Hearing that leaves Tomoki devastated, and she immediately regrets asking the question. Overcome with emotion, Tomoki transforms and attacks Gangyu. He effortlessly disappears from her sight, appears behind her, and drives her into the wall with a powerful kick. As dust fills the room, she launches another attack, but Gangyu counters with a single punch to her stomach, forcing blood from her mouth and dropping her to her knees. Gangyu admits that, despite everything, he still regrets having to kill the family member of one of his teammates. Seeing an opportunity, Tomoki begs for mercy. She reminds him that he was once a hero and that he promised Rayasa never to take a life. Gangyu quietly replies that he is no longer a hero. Terrified, Tomoki grabs his leg and pleads to be spared. Gangyu tells her to think about how many times she heard those same words from her own victims. Then he ends her life with a single punch. The force of Gangyu's battle echoes throughout the prison. Some people are overwhelmed by the sheer power of the shockwaves. Sinka smiles as she listens, enjoying every moment. Others, like Correctional Officer Jia Hong, tremble in fear. For a few survivors, however, the sound becomes a sign of hope. Deep within the fifth basement, even H-Wang grows impatient. Deciding he has waited long enough, he prepares to head upstairs. Before he can move, a powerful kick suddenly sends him flying across the room. Catching Gang Ho's hat as it falls, H-Wang remarks that it was an incredibly powerful strike. The attacker is an elderly prisoner named Kingston. He casually asks H-Wang if he is bored and invites him to play instead. H-Wang acknowledges that Kingston is far more dangerous than he expected. Kingston simply smiles and says he is nothing more than an old man looking for someone to entertain him. The story then reveals that Kingston is the very first prisoner ever locked inside Ruculus prison. The correctional officers notice a new fight breaking out on the fifth basement and immediately alert Warden Joe. On the surveillance feed, Kingston and H-Wang are standing face to face. Joe sees this as good news, believing one of them will eliminate the other. She hopes Kingston wins because, despite his reputation, she considers him less dangerous than H-Wang. Moments later, she notices Ahura floating behind H-Wang and wonders why she is suspended in the air. H-Wang asks Kingston if he wants to fight. Kingston gladly accepts, but H-Wang says he has no interest in fighting him. Kingston simply replies that he wants to fight anyway. The story reveals Kingston's history. He is the first and longest-serving prisoner in Ruthless prison. Unlike the 4th and 5th basement inmates, who slaughtered hundreds of thousands of people, Kingston was imprisoned for killing only 3. His first victim was Caracas, once considered the world's strongest villain. His other 2 victims were Clark and Hilo, the strongest hero duo of their era. Kingston appeared without warning, killed all 3 of the world's most powerful fighters, then questioned whether defeating the so-called invincible had truly made him the strongest. Disappointed by the answer, he surrendered himself to the government. Although he was considered an enormous threat, the government delayed his execution for 30 years because of the political tensions between the government and the Hero Association at the time. Kingston tells H-Wang he has no intention of killing him and suggests they simply play a game instead. H-Wang agrees. He lifts the bodies of the dead officers into the air, compresses them into meatballs just as he did with Gang Ho, and launches them at Kingston. Kingston calmly redirects every projectile with his bare hands, sending them crashing into the walls. Watching the attack, Kingston realizes H-Wang's ability isn't telekinesis, as he first assumed. He asks whether H-Wang has anything more interesting to offer. H-Wang dismisses him, saying there's no fun in fighting an old man who will die of old age anyway. The insult irritates Kingston. He tells H-Wang that he has met plenty of arrogant people who believed they were the biggest fish in the pond. Then he stomps the ground with tremendous force, cracking the floor beneath him. The entire prison begins shaking. While frightened guards think the building is about to collapse, Warden Joe reminds them that the prison was built with 20 layers of reinforced walls, capable of withstanding attacks from 1st and 2nd-tier heroes. Kingston decides it's time to teach H-Wang a lesson. He vanishes and instantly appears in front of him, delivering a devastating kick. The impact seems powerful enough to drive H-Wang straight through the wall, shaking the entire prison. Even Gang Yu, who is making his way toward the 2nd basement, notices the massive tremor. The officers anxiously check the surveillance footage to see who won. They discover that H-Wang narrowly dodged the kick at the last possible moment. Instead, Kingston's attack blasted through multiple reinforced walls, leaving a massive tunnel behind. Seeing the damage, Warden Joe realizes just how powerful Kingston truly is, and fears the situation has become even worse. H-Wang jokes that Kingston is like a walking drilling machine, and considers following him through the tunnel. Before H-Wang can move, Sinka, along with Canis and Gato, appears behind him. Sinka tells H-Wang to forget about chasing Kingston, because staying and talking with her will be far more entertaining. Neither Warden Joe nor the officers recognize who Sinka is. When H-Wang asks her identity, she shyly tells him he'll find out if they spend some time together. Realizing they're being watched, Sinka destroys the surveillance camera, cutting off the prison's only live feed from the 5th basement. Warden Joe is left completely frustrated as the screen goes black. Meanwhile, Gang Yu reaches the entrance to the 2nd basement and reports that he has already cleared the 1st basement. He asks the warden to open the next gate, but receives no response because the communication signal has been lost. Without waiting any longer, Gang Yu forces the massive gate open with his own strength and enters the 2nd basement alone. As he walks deeper inside, something immediately feels wrong. Unlike the previous floors, there isn't a single drop of blood, no smell of death, and not even one body lying in the corridors. The entire area is unnaturally quiet. Suddenly, Gang Yu spots a woman running toward him. It is Correctional Officer Jia Hong, desperately fleeing from several monsters. Before the creatures can reach her, Gang Yu destroys them instantly. Believing he is Gang Ho, Hong runs straight into his arms and hugs him. She says she thought he was stationed on the 5th basement, and wonders why he never told her he had superpowers. Gang Yu gently pulls her away and explains that he isn't Gang Ho. He's Gang Ho's brother, Gang Yu Seo. Shocked, Hong realizes she has mistaken him for someone else. She asks why a famous hero is wearing a correctional officer's uniform, and what he's doing inside the prison. Gang Yu tells her that, since she worked with Gang Ho, she needs to leave because the area isn't safe. Hong interrupts him with a smile and jokingly calls him her brother-in-law. She happily introduces herself as the woman who is going to marry Gang Ho, and remarks that the 2 brothers look almost identical. Her words leave Gang Yu completely speechless. Elsewhere on the 2nd basement, the imprisoned twins Mail and Meal sense that an outsider has entered their floor. They wonder how many prisoners the newcomer has already defeated. The scene reveals numerous guards and prisoners floating through the air, each marked with halos or demonic features. After noticing that Gang Yu has killed one of her creatures, Mail calmly declares that the outsider is about to become a prisoner himself. Jia Hong tells Gang Yu that she has only ever seen him in photos and videos, but in person, he looks even better. She introduces herself as a correctional officer. Gang Yu replies that his brother once mentioned having a girlfriend, but never said anything about getting married. Smiling, Hong points to her stomach and reveals that she is pregnant. She explains that the baby is less than a month old, so the pregnancy isn't visible yet. Gang Ho planned to tell Gang Yu the news after Wang's execution. The revelation leaves Gang Yu stunned and heartbroken. Hong notices his reaction and asks if something is wrong, but Gang Yu hides the truth. Instead of telling her that Gang Ho is dead, he says Gang Ho is still on the 5th basement, where he is supposedly sending rescue signals. Relieved, Hong calms down. Hong then asks why Gang Yu is inside the prison wearing a correctional officer's uniform. Gang Yu explains that he has been assigned as a correctional officer and ordered to execute the escaped prisoners. Shocked, Hong asks whether those orders came from the warden. Gang Yu realizes she has no idea what happened and briefly explains the EMP attack that disabled the prison's suppression systems. Hong wonders who could have launched such an attack, and Gang Yu tells her the investigation is still ongoing. Worried, Hong immediately asks about Gang Ho because he was supposed to be on the 5th basement during the execution. Once again, Gang Yu keeps the truth from her. He tells her that Gang Ho is alive, then urges her to leave because the 2nd basement isn't safe. Hong refuses. She insists on staying because she can help him. She explains that her superpower allows her to read people's memories. She only uses it for investigations, helping determine whether inmates are truly guilty of the crimes they are accused of. When Gang Yu asks how that will help, Hong explains that the 2nd basement is controlled by the twins Meal and Mail, who remain inside their isolation cell. The siblings possess summoning and special type abilities that allow them to create creatures capable of attacking people's hearts and turning them into puppets. They have already transformed every prisoner on the floor into puppets. Gang Yu says he already knows about the twins because they were students of his teammate Mego. He insists he doesn't need any more information and tells Hong to leave. She refuses again, explaining that many correctional officers have also been turned into puppets. Since both officers and prisoners now look the same, Gang Yu won't be able to tell them apart. Using her memory reading ability, she can identify the surviving officers. Gang Yu argues that if they have already become puppets, they're effectively dead anyway. Hong quickly corrects him, explaining that the victims are still alive. If the twins release their powers, the officers can return to normal. Gang Yu doubts the twins would ever do that, but Hong insists on trying to persuade them. Gang Yu reminds Hong to think about her unborn child because the area is too dangerous. Hong responds that she understands the risk, but she is still a correctional officer and intends to fulfill her duty. Seeing the same determination that his brother had, Gang Yu finally agrees to let her stay. To protect her, Gang Yu surrounds Hong with a circular barrier created by his own power. Confused, she asks what it is. Gang Yu explains that the barrier will keep her safe before continuing toward the isolation cell. Soon they encounter a large group of puppets standing in their path. Hong explains that these are Meal's creations and warns Gang Yu that several correctional officers are mixed in with them. Gang Yu asks her to identify the officers. Using her ability, Hong finds them and points out the 2 officers standing at the back of the group. She suggests separating them from the puppets before attacking. Instead, Gang Yu completely covers Hong's vision with his power, so she can't witness what he's about to do. As she protests that she can't see anything, Gang Yu says he has a much simpler way to rescue the officers. He restrains the 2 correctional officers so they can't be harmed or attack anyone. The puppet prisoners immediately charge at him. Gang Yu destroys the first one with a single punch, then unleashes his red and black energy, slicing through the remaining puppets in an instant while leaving the 2 officers unharmed. From their isolation cell, Meal and Mail watch everything unfold through a crystal ball. Meal wonders if the outsider is stronger than their master. Mail isn't sure, but she recalls Rayasa and wonders whether Gang Yu might even surpass her. Gripping her brother's hand, she quietly admits that she is afraid. Meal reassures her that Gang Yu won't defeat them so easily. At the same time, many more prisoners prepare to be transformed into puppets, ready for the next battle. Gang Yu deactivates the barrier surrounding Jia Hong. Gasping for air, she demands to know why he trapped her inside it. Gang Yu apologizes, admitting he should have warned her first. When she asks what happened, he calmly explains that he rescued the correctional officers and executed every remaining prisoner. Hong is stunned. She points out that the prison's execution device is located on the 5th basement. Gang Yu tells her he didn't use the device, he carried out the executions himself. Shocked, she asks whose idea it was. Gang Yu replies that it was his decision. When she asks whether the warden approved, he confirms that she did. Hong can hardly believe it, questioning whether the warden has lost her mind. She then asks Gang Yu whether he truly believes what he's doing is right. Gang Yu answers that he simply carried out the duty of a correctional officer. Hong immediately disagrees, arguing that a correctional officer's job is to reform prisoners, not execute them. Gang Yu cuts her off, saying he doesn't need another lecture. He remembers Reyas's ideals, that heroes exist to save people, not kill villains, and that only the law has the authority to decide a criminal's fate. Gang Yu says he already knows where those ideals lead. They only result in good people dying at the hands of monsters who can never be redeemed. Whether he is called a hero or a correctional officer no longer matters to him. In his eyes, someone has to eliminate those monsters, and he should have done it long ago. Hong is disturbed by his words. She insists that the prisoners are still human beings. Gang Yu angrily rejects that idea, reminding her that the criminals on the second basement and below have murdered thousands of innocent people and deserve to die. He explains that although there were once debates about abolishing the death penalty to prevent innocent people from being executed, psychometric abilities now make wrongful convictions virtually impossible. Since Hong also possesses a psychometric power, she understands that better than anyone. Hong argues that every criminal has a story, especially male and male. Gang Yu replies that every victim had a story too. In the end, he says, it makes no difference whether those criminals die by his hands or by an execution device. They will all face execution eventually. Hong maintains that no single person should have the power to decide who lives and dies. Gang Yu warns her to stop before he sends her back to the surface and continues alone. The two continue deeper into the second basement and encounter another group of puppet-controlled prisoners. Gang Yu asks which ones are correctional officers, and Hong identifies the 3 puppets standing in the back. Gang Yu prepares to attack. As Hong quietly remarks that Gang Ho would be upset if he saw this, Gang Yu freezes for a split second. A puppet seizes the opportunity to strike him with a sword, but the blade shatters against his body. Already consumed by anger, Gang Yu retaliates with a devastating kick. While fighting the puppets, Gang Yu's mind keeps returning to Reyas's ideals, his brother's beliefs, and Hong's words. Instead of calming him, those memories only fuel his anger. He begins cutting through the puppets one after another before activating Mode 5, creating numerous energy spheres and launching them across the battlefield. The barrage wipes out the remaining puppet prisoners. Only after the fighting ends does his anger finally begin to settle. Elsewhere, Cinco watches Gang Yu through one of her portals. Fascinated, she says that the more she watches him, the more extraordinary he becomes. As Gang Yu advances, he comes across 3 more puppets. Hong identifies all 3 as correctional officers. Just then, a large door opens ahead of them, and the twin siblings Meal and Mail step out of their isolation cell to greet him in person. Gang Yu looks at them, and calmly says they have just made his job much easier. Mail and Meal step forward to confront Gang Yu. Jia Hong immediately tells everyone to stop. Meal asks Hong why she refused to join them, claiming she could have gone to heaven with them. Gang Yu interrupts and orders the twins to release every correctional officer from their magic. In return, he promises to give them a quick, painless death. Meal asks if there's any outcome where they don't have to die. Gang Yu replies that the prisoners on the ground floor and first basement were given a choice to wear their suppression devices and surrender. But the criminals below the first basement have slaughtered thousands of people, so death is the only option left for them. Meal remembers hearing that Gang Yu once fought alongside their master, while Mail nervously recalls the woman who captured them. She tells Gang Yu that he is nothing like his former teammates and declares that he is destined for hell. Meal quickly tells her to stop talking. Gang Yu calmly prepares to attack and says they'll soon find out who reaches hell first. Trying one last time to avoid a fight, Meal offers a deal. If Gang Yu lets them leave, they will release everyone under their control. Gang Yu immediately refuses. Jia Hong also begs the twins to surrender and put their suppression devices back on. Meal rejects the idea, insisting they never committed crimes worthy of execution, and reminding Hong that she knows the truth. Gang Yu tells Hong that reasoning with them is pointless, because monsters like these cannot be persuaded with words. As he creates a weapon from his power, he remarks that beasts still feel pain. Meal insists they don't want to fight and says that if Gang Yu only knew their story, he would understand. Gang Yu cuts him off before he can continue, saying he has no interest in hearing it. Hong desperately argues that they can still find a peaceful solution through conversation. Gang Yu silences her by trapping her inside another protective sphere. He then seizes both twins with his power, lifts them into the air, and begins crushing their bodies. He recalls a villain once teaching him methods of torture, and admits he never expected that knowledge to become useful. As the pressure increases, Meal tells Gang Yu that he is the real beast. Mail goes even further, calling him not a beast but a monster. Gang Yu tightens his grip even more, but suddenly realizes the siblings standing before him are only prison-made doubles created with their special type ability. He destroys the fake bodies without hesitation. Looking at the remaining puppets, Gang Yu wonders why every criminal keeps calling him a monster. He then wipes out the entire group. Watching from hiding, Mail becomes visibly shaken. Neil asks if she needs help, but she tells him to keep focusing on breaking through the wall while she buys more time. Mail opens a massive summoning circle in front of Gang Yu, releasing wave after wave of terrifying monsters. Gang Yu immediately realizes she has switched to her summoning ability. Since the creatures aren't human, he has no hesitation and cuts through them one after another. Seeing every monster fall almost instantly, Mail begins to panic and asks Meal how much longer he needs. Meal tells her he needs another 10 minutes. As Mail prepares an even stronger summon using her own blood, the entire isolation chamber suddenly shakes. Gang Yu crashes straight through the ceiling, tearing a massive hole above them. The twins look up in shock as he lands inside their cell. Gang Yu points to the monsters outside and explains that once the twins are dead, every summoned creature will disappear on its own. That's why he came directly to them, instead of wasting time fighting endless summons. He gives them one final chance: release every prisoner and correctional officer under their control, and he will grant them a painless death. Gang Yu stands before the twins and gives them one final warning. Staring at the massive hole in the ceiling, Meal and Mail are shocked that he broke through so many reinforced layers. As black energy begins gathering around Gang Yu, he orders them to release everyone under their control. Terrified, the twins hesitate. In desperation, Meal summons 4 powerful angels: Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel. Gang Yu destroys all 4 with a single attack. Realizing brute force won't work, Meal takes the remaining prisoners hostage and threatens to kill them, unless Gang Yu lets them go. Gang Yu responds without hesitation that he will kill the twins first. At that moment, Meal hears Mail screaming. Gang Yu has already captured her and is slowly crushing her body with his power, warning that she will die an extremely painful death. As Mail's screams grow louder, Meal finally breaks. Unable to watch his sister suffer any longer, Meal agrees to release every prisoner and correctional officer under their spell. He asks for only one thing in return: the chance to speak with Officer Jia Hong before they die. Gang Yu refuses to stop until everyone is freed. With no other choice, the twins cancel their magic. Instantly, every controlled prisoner and officer regains consciousness. Confused, the prisoners have no idea where they are or what happened. Gang Yu immediately executes every prisoner while sparing the correctional officers. The surviving officers recognize Gang Yu and are shocked to see a famous hero inside the prison. Gang Yu orders them to evacuate immediately, and they quickly leave the second basement. With his promise fulfilled, Meal reminds Gang Yu that they upheld their side of the bargain. Gang Yu agrees to let them speak with Jia Hong, but first leads them outside the cell, saying a pregnant woman shouldn't have to witness what is about to happen. Gang Yu removes Hong's protective barrier and tells her that the twins released everyone and that the correctional officers have been rescued. Hong immediately asks what will happen to Meal and Mail. Gang Yu answers that they are about to be executed, but wanted to speak with her first. Hong asks if they can simply wear suppression devices instead. Gang Yu reminds her that the criminals from the second basement and below are responsible for thousands of murders. In his eyes, execution is their only possible sentence. Hong is left speechless. Meal turns to Hong and asks whether she truly believes they deserve to die. He insists they never committed crimes worthy of the death penalty and begs her to say something. Hong struggles to answer. She wants to speak, but no words come out. Seeing her silence, Gang Yu tells the twins that he has kept his promise. Now it is time for him to keep the rest of it. Mail desperately begs for her life, crying that she doesn't want to die as she calls out to her brother. Gang Yu doesn't stop. He throws a devastating punch that triggers a massive explosion. When the smoke clears, Gang Yu realizes his attack never reached the twins. Meigo has appeared and protected them with a powerful shield. Both Meal and Mail stare at him in disbelief, while even Gang Yu is caught completely off guard. Looking at the unexpected rescue, he can only ask, "What is going on here?" Meigo's defensive magic continues protecting Mail and Meal. Gang Yu is stunned. At first, he wonders if this is another one of the twins' illusions, but quickly dismisses the idea. There's no way second basement prisoners could cast magic of this level. He realizes Meigo must have placed the spell on them himself, but he can't understand why his former teammate would protect criminals. Pushing those thoughts aside, Gang Yu decides to destroy the barrier himself. The terrified twins watch as Gang Yu shatters the first shield with a single strike, but behind it is another shield, and another, and another. One by one, Gang Yu breaks through each layer. As every barrier falls, his uneasiness only grows stronger. The endless shields trigger a memory from Gang Yu's time with the Equality team. Meigo is happily playing with a group of children, while the rest of the team watches. Hub jokes that the old man never seems to get tired. Yuge laughs, while Hub starts teasing Tommy about getting married and having lots of children together. Tommy immediately denies ever agreeing to marry him, and the two begin arguing until Rayasa tells them to stop. Meigo then calls everyone over to play with the children, and the entire team joins in. Only Gangyu remains alone beneath a tree. Meigo walks over and asks if he dislikes children. Gangyu says that's not the problem, he simply doesn't know how to interact with them. Meigo smiles and tells him to treat them the same way his parents treated him when he was young. Gangyu quietly reveals that both of his parents died shortly after he was born, and that his older brother was the only family he ever had. Realizing his mistake, Meigo apologizes. After thinking for a moment, he jokingly tells Gangyu to treat him like a child instead. Gangyu stares at him in confusion, making Meigo laugh. He says he never expected Gangyu to make that kind of expression, and tells him that, if he ever needs someone, he can always treat Meigo like family. Gangyu brushes the comment aside, saying he doesn't need that. The memory suddenly shifts to the battlefield after H-Wang's attack. Gangyu sees the bodies of Hub, Tommy, Rayasa, and Yuge lying around him. Overwhelmed with grief, he breaks down in tears. As Meigo himself lies dying, he gently reassures Gangyu that everything will be alright. Back in the present, Gangyu destroys every shield except the last one. Mail has already fainted from fear. Standing before the final barrier, Gangyu sees Meigo's smiling face embedded within the magic. Instead of attacking, he releases Jia Hong from her protective sphere. Gangyu asks Hong whether her psychometric ability can read the memories stored inside magical abilities. She confirms that it can. Pointing toward Meigo's final shield, Gangyu asks her to read its memories because he wants to understand why Meigo chose to protect the twins. Hong activates her ability and shares the memory with Gangyu. At first, Gangyu is confused because he sees fragments of the twins' memories mixed together with Meigo's. Hong explains that the defensive spell was cast directly on the siblings, so their memories have become intertwined with the magic itself. Gangyu makes one thing clear before looking any further. No matter what he discovers, he still intends to execute the twins. With that settled, Hong continues deeper into their memories. The memory reveals an underground auction where children with superpowers are being trafficked and sold. Numerous children are locked inside cages, waiting to be auctioned off. Among them are 6-year-old Mail and Meal. Hong's memory reveals the truth behind the twins' past. Years earlier, an underground ability user auction operated beneath the fallen city. Wealthy collectors attended these auctions to buy children with rare superpowers as personal possessions. Meal and Mail's own father sold them into this auction. The most valuable children were those with special type or physical type abilities. Summoning users were considered common and usually attracted little interest. Knowing this, Meal and Mail hid the fact that they possessed a rare special type ability, allowing them to avoid being purchased for a long time. Eventually, a mysterious woman arrived to buy them. She wasn't interested in raising them, she wanted to experiment on them. Smiling, she explained that she wanted to discover what kind of child would be born from an angel and a devil. The twins were too young to understand what she meant, and the woman simply told them they would understand when they grew older. Before anything could happen, the entire building shook violently. A massive meteor crashed through the roof, destroying the auction house and leaving an enormous crater behind. Miraculously, the children survived. Looking up, everyone saw Meigo and his assistant Lippis standing above the ruins. They had attacked the auction to stop the trafficking operation. Lippis asks Meigo how he cast such an enormous meteor and wonders if she can ever learn that spell herself. Meigo laughs and tells her that, with enough hard work, she can. He reminds her that imagination is the key to mastering summoning magic. Lippis then reports that she has already completed her mission by rescuing every victim and transporting all of the auction participants into custody. Just then, Meal calls out to Meigo and asks if he and his sister can come with him, because they are also summoning users. Lippis immediately protests, claiming she thought she was supposed to be Meigo's only student. Meigo jokingly asks when he ever made that promise before turning his attention to the twins. To test them, Meigo asks the twins to demonstrate their abilities. Meal summons angels, while Mail summons devils. Lippis finds it strange that children would create such terrifying beings instead of toys or friendly animals. Meigo, however, is intrigued and decides to take both of them as his students. For the next 3 years, Meigo teaches the twins everything he knows about summoning magic. He explains that imagination is the foundation of every summoner's power. Whatever image a summoner can clearly envision can become reality. He believes Meal's angels represent a memory of someone who once protected him, while Mail's demons likely reflect the trauma left behind by their abusive father. Meigo encourages them to see the world from many different perspectives, because doing so will greatly expand what they can summon. When Meigo asks what they truly want to achieve, the twins answer that they are fascinated by heaven and hell. Before their mother died, she told them that kind people go to heaven while evil people go to hell. Those words became the reason they kept living. They dream of creating a world where good people reach heaven and evil people are sent to hell. Mago gently places a hand on their heads and tells them he believes they can achieve that dream because they are kind children. One day, Lippis rushes to Mago with urgent news. The Hero Association is asking for his help, even though they previously rejected one of his proposals. She also reveals that Gangyu has been spotted in Finland. Hearing this, Mago immediately realizes the situation is serious and decides the equality team must leave at once. Before departing, Mago calls the twins to him. They are devastated. Mail clings to him, begging him not to leave because she doesn't want to be abandoned again. Meal asks if they can accompany him, but Mago refuses, explaining that his upcoming opponent is far too dangerous to risk their lives. As Mail continues crying, saying she never wants to be thrown away again, Lippis comforts her by reminding her that she is not an object anyone can discard. As a farewell gift, Mago places his personal symbol on the twins' clothes. He tells them that any shelter bearing his mark will protect them until they meet again. His final request is simple: stay kind. After Mago leaves, fear keeps Meal and Mail from going to the shelter. Instead, they isolate themselves in the mountains and spend years strengthening their abilities. Alone, they struggle to answer impossible questions. What makes someone good? What makes someone evil? How should they use their powers? 2 years later, the twins return to their hometown and reach their own conclusion. Good people belong in heaven. Evil people belong in hell. Acting on that belief, they transform many of the townspeople into puppets and declare that they have created a perfect world, a utopia. Within just 1 month, Meal and Mail transformed their hometown into what they believed was a perfect utopia. They summoned angels and demons to watch over every citizen, observing their actions for an entire month before deciding who deserved heaven and who deserved hell. Their judgment was based entirely on the values their mother taught them as children. Never steal, never litter, keep the peace, never lie, and never fight with others. To the twins, those simple rules became the absolute standard for deciding whether someone was good or evil. After monitoring one woman and her child, Meal tells them they lived kind and honest lives. As the terrified woman begs to be spared, Meal calmly turns them into puppets, assuring them they won't die. Instead, they will dream forever of a peaceful life in heaven. News of the twins' so-called utopia quickly reaches the Hero Association. During an emergency meeting, the association's director, Yudariti, notices that only 3 heroes have shown up. Third-tier hero Banju jokes that everyone else must have taken the day off, while another third-tier hero, Kusta, asks if there's finally an interesting case to handle. As they review the mission list, both heroes complain that every available assignment is only a bone-level case. Banju wants a harder mission to improve her rank, while Kusta asks whether there are any B2-level cases available. Yudariti offers them a B3-level mission instead, but Banju immediately refuses because it sounds too dangerous. While browsing the files, Banju notices the report about Meal and Mail taking over an entire village. Yudariti explains that, despite the scale of the incident, the twins are officially classified as bone-level villains because they are only around 10 years old. Kusta is surprised that children who haven't even reached adulthood have already seized control of an entire town. Yudariti believes they'll eventually become B2 or even B3-level threats if left alone. Kusta asks whether they should simply wait until that happens. Yudariti rejects the idea, saying it would take years. He also reminds them that the twins were students of Mago. The moment his name comes up, both heroes become noticeably uneasy. Banju suggests waiting for Mago to return and letting him deal with his own students, but Kusta points out that Mago is currently in Finland, assisting with the Aswede incident. At that moment, another third-tier hero named Kyuthu volunteers for the mission. She travels to the twins' hometown and is immediately stunned by what she sees. Countless puppet-controlled citizens float high above the town, filling the sky. After entering the town, Kyuthu casually walks around, even taking selfies with the angels and demons. Curious, she wonders whether they belong to a special category of abilities, have been brainwashed, or are simply asleep. They don't appear to be dead. Moments later, the angels and demons transform back into Meal and Mail. Meal demands to know why she came. Rather than attacking, Kyuthu becomes fascinated by their abilities. She asks whether special-type users can perform even more impressive techniques like that. Protecting his sister, Meal demands answers instead. Kyuthu asks whether Mago knows they possess special-type abilities, pointing out that he normally accepts only summoners as students. The twins look confused, making Kyuthu realize Mago never told them. When Meal asks who she is, Kyuthu introduces herself as their senior. The twins insist that Lippis is their only senior. Kyuthu explains that she was once Mago's student as well. She loved sharp weapons, but Mago insisted she also master defensive magic. Believing defense didn't suit her, she ignored his advice. Eventually, Mago stopped paying attention to her altogether. Bitterness turned into resentment, and she repeatedly calls Meigo selfish for abandoning her. Watching Kyuthu lose control frightens Mail. As Neil prepares a defensive barrier, he orders Kyuthu to leave. Instead, she summons countless razor-sharp weapons. Before Meal can stop her, Kyuthu attacks the puppet-controlled townspeople and begins killing them. She believes that if she causes enough destruction, Meigo will finally remember her again. Kyuthu begins slaughtering Meal and Mail's puppets without hesitation. Laughing with excitement, she calls the massacre pure euphoria. The twins return to their hidden location and watch everything through a crystal sphere. Meal asks Mail if she's alright as they witness Kyuthu gleefully cutting down puppet after puppet. She admits it's even more enjoyable than she imagined. When Kyuthu targets another puppet, the twins step in to protect it. Instead of being annoyed, Kyuthu is thrilled to see they can use defensive magic. She praises them for learning well from their teacher. A demon suddenly attacks Kyuthu from behind, but she slices it in half effortlessly. She tells the twins they still have a lot to learn. Mail responds that Kyuthu is definitely going to hell. Kyuthu laughs and reminds them that she's their senior and deserves respect. She reveals that she's always wanted to unleash her abilities in the middle of a crowd, but doing so as a hero would have landed her in prison. Thanks to the twins, she finally has the perfect opportunity to fulfill that desire. She raises her hand and summons an enormous blade the size of an entire town. Summoners grow stronger through imagination, and after killing so many people, Kyuthu's imagination has expanded enough to create something on that scale. Amazed by her own power, she says she's never summoned anything that large before and credits the twins for making it possible. Then she prepares to bring it down on them. Before she can attack, a massive demon devours her. The creature was summoned by Mail. Seeing Kyuthu act like a true demon expands Mail's own imagination, allowing her to summon a monster powerful enough to consume her. Shaken, Mail asks Meal if she just killed someone. Meal hugs his sister and tells her she didn't kill a person. She killed a demon. 1 year later, the twins build an even larger utopia. Their growing power leads the authorities to reclassify them as Beat-Wo-level threats. When Meigo returns, he's shocked by what they've become. Hero Association Chairman Yudariti tells him the twins are known to be his students and demands an explanation. Meigo, unable to believe it, immediately says he has to go see them. Yudariti refuses to let him leave. He reminds Meigo that he previously ordered him to execute a Swede, but Meigo ignored those orders and handed the villain over to the government alive. Because of that, Yudariti says he can no longer trust Meigo to handle matters his own way. Meigo insists on leaving anyway, but Yudariti slams his hand onto the table, cracking it, and orders him to stay. Meigo immediately prepares to fight back with his defensive magic, accusing Yudariti of letting power blind his judgment. Before the conflict escalates, Rayasa steps in and volunteers to take the mission herself. At the time, she is still a third-tier hero. Yudariti accepts immediately, calling it the perfect opportunity for her promotion. Meigo protests, but Rayasa asks him to trust her. She heads to the twins' territory alone. As Meal and Mail sense another outsider approaching, they wonder how many sins this newcomer has committed. Standing before them, Rayasa simply smiles. Rayasa walks through the town and comes across 3 puppets. She quickly recognizes them as the heroes who arrived before her and realizes they are still alive. Moments later, the puppets transform into Meal and Mail. They demand to know who she is and why she's there. Rayasa calmly introduces herself and tells them she's come to take them with her. The moment they hear she's a hero, the twins become hostile and summon countless demons for protection. Mail warns Rayasa to leave, or she'll be sent to hell. Rayasa simply agrees to leave, but asks the twins to come back with her. As Rayasa walks toward them, her ability weakens the summoned demons. Standing before the frightened children, she tells them she can feel they never intended to kill her. She believes things wouldn't have gone this far if the previous heroes had treated them with kindness. Although the twins think they're doing the right thing, people keep standing against them. Meal tells her not to come any closer. Rayasa gently reassures them that she won't hurt them. She explains that what they're doing is wrong and says their teacher, Meigo, is heartbroken by everything that's happened. Hearing Meigo's name, Mail asks if their teacher has finally returned. Meal immediately assumes it's a lie, but Rayasa insists she's telling the truth. She reaches out her hand and asks them to release their abilities and come meet Meigo. Trusting her, the twins take her hand and leave with her, finally feeling relieved. Not long after, they reunite with Meigo. The twins burst into tears. Meal apologizes for hiding the fact that they possessed special-type abilities. Their mother told them to keep that secret, because they believed Meigo only accepted summoners as students. Meigo is confused and asks who told them that. The twins reveal it was Kyuthu, who claimed to be his student. Meigo explains that Kyuthu was never his student. He only met her once at the Hero Association, and simply offered her some advice. His only real students have always been Lippis, Meal, and Mail. After 3 years apart, Meigo finally catches up with the twins. They tell him everything that happened, how they grew stronger, and how no one ever understood them. Even after everything, they still don't understand what they did wrong. Meigo quietly listens. Rayasa eventually interrupts and asks if they're finished talking. Meigo pleads with her to leave the twins in his care. Although they held thousands of people hostage and one hero died, no one in the village was killed directly by them. He believes they were simply children who lost their way and asks for the chance to teach them what they did wrong. Rayasa sadly refuses. She explains that Yutariti has changed the law to allow the execution of underage criminals. She personally disagrees with that law, but insists that the law is still the law. A hero's duty is to capture criminals, not rehabilitate them. Even so, Rayasa understands how Meigo feels. She says the world is deeply flawed and asks if he would be willing to work with her to change it. Meigo agrees on one condition. The twins must not be executed before they become adults. He asks to place his own ability on them until then. Rayasa accepts. Meigo casts the spell and vows that, before the twins reach adulthood, they will change the world together. Back in the present, Gangyu finishes watching the memories. He recalls the day Rayasa invited him to join Equality and asked him to help change the world. Standing before Meigo's final protective barrier, he hears Neil question the difference between their actions and the world's laws. The twins judged people using their own rules, while society judges people using laws created by humans. They ask what the real difference is. Officer Hong then reveals that she and Gangho were assigned to rehabilitate the twins. Before she can say more, Gangyu traps her inside a sphere. Hong insists she isn't defending the twins. She only believes they first need to understand why what they did was wrong. Gangyu seals her inside the barrier and advances toward the twins. Terrified, Neil and Mail beg for mercy. As Gangyu raises his fist, Neil finally admits they may have been wrong. The twins cry out for their mother, then desperately call for their teacher. Gangyu swings his fist, but instead of striking them, he slams the ground. The entire prison shakes as the twins cling to each other in fear. Gangyu struggles with his own decision, realizing something doesn't feel right. Suddenly, both twins are sliced into cubes. Sinka has arrived. Neil and Mail die instantly as their bodies fall apart. Gangyu watches their clothes drift through the air, noticing Meigo's symbol still stitched onto them. Sinka smiles at Gangyu and asks why he hesitated so much to kill them. She tells him that overthinking doesn't suit him. Then, admiring him, she calls him incredibly handsome and addresses him as her future husband. Sinka arrives to confront Gangyu and starts introducing herself. Before she can finish, Gangyu throws a punch. Canis steps in and blocks it, though the force tears his shirt apart. Canis tells Gangyu that, when someone is speaking, he should at least listen. Sinka immediately scolds Canis, reminding him that Gangyu is supposed to become their future leader. Sinka tries introducing herself again, but Gangyu attacks a second time. Lightning erupts from his punch, but Sinka effortlessly blocks it with a spatial shield. Smiling, she tells him he's far too impatient. Since they'll be seeing each other often in the future, she suggests they talk first. She introduces herself as Sinka and declares that she will become the Eve of a new humanity. Her ability is space manipulation. Exhausted, Gangyu stares at her in disbelief. Sinka happily confirms her claim, while Gangyu mutters that he's already mentally drained, and now he's forced to deal with a complete lunatic. Offended, Sinka turns to Canis and Gato, asking if she's the smartest woman in the world. Both immediately agree. Sinka explains that humanity is slowly dying and is heading toward extinction. She asks Gangyu what he believes is humanity's greatest threat. She assumes that, as a former member of Equality, he'd blame villains or corrupt heroes. According to her, that's completely wrong. She insists that the real threat is ordinary people with no abilities. Their genes, she claims, should be erased entirely. Only those with superior genes deserve to reproduce, yet powerful bloodlines continue disappearing while weak genes spread unchecked. As proof, she points to Equality's second generation of heroes. They possessed extraordinary abilities, yet all of them died. She calls that an insult to natural evolution. In her view, evolution should eliminate the weak, but heroes keep saving them instead. Sinka tells Gangyu that he is finally doing the right thing. He's no longer a hero, and she's convinced he enjoys killing people with inferior genes. Watching him execute criminals is what made her fall in love with him. She argues that Ruculus prison is filled with people who possess superior genes. In her eyes, they committed no crime by killing inferior humans. After eliminating ordinary humans and the heroes who stand in the way of evolution, she wants to build an alpha world, where only those with powerful abilities remain. She adds that if strong heroes decide to change sides, they'll also be welcomed into this new world. They're not completely unreasonable. Gangyu grows increasingly irritated and says he was trying to stop himself from killing people who weren't criminals. Now he's starting to believe that's impossible. Sinka blushes and completely misunderstands his words. Thinking he's talking about romance rather than violence, she becomes flustered. Gato tries to explain that Gangyu clearly meant something else, but Sinka ignores her, insisting those kinds of things should wait until they're alone. Still blushing, Sinka calls Gangyu her Adam and declares herself his Eve. Together, they will create the next generation of humanity. She admits that she originally chose Hwang as Adam, which is why she organized the EMP attack to rescue him. That revelation shocks Gangyu. Sinka continues explaining that the prison's defenses were far stronger than expected. An external attack couldn't damage it, so after obtaining the prison's internal layout, they customized an EMP and used her space manipulation ability to detonate it from within. The moment Gangyu hears EMP, he immediately realizes what she's saying. Sinka casually explains that she also discussed her plans with Hwang, but he is still too young. Since abilities fully mature only after puberty, he still needs time. But she refuses to wait. She says her name, Sinka, means a treasure of imagination, and she's already found the perfect solution. Until Hwang becomes an adult, she'll build the new humanity with Gangyu instead. Once Hwang matures, all three of them will continue that mission together. She proudly claims she's found the perfect way to preserve both of their superior bloodlines by making them part of one family. Then she asks Gangyu if he finally understands her plan. Burning with rage, Gangyu ignores everything except one fact. He demands to know if her group was responsible for the EMP attack. Sinka brushes the question aside and reminds him that his older brother was a correction officer who died because of that attack. Then, without hesitation, she tells Gangyu they can simply build a new family together. She asks him what he thinks of her proposal. Gangyu quietly answers that he made his decision long ago. Then he tells her to forget what he said earlier about struggling to stop himself from killing people. Tearing straight through Sinka's shield with his bare hands, Gangyu swears he'll kill her deliberately and brutally. He promises to rip her body apart and crush every bone she has. Instead of being frightened, Sinka smiles. Delighted by his reaction, she says this must be nothing more than a lover's quarrel. Then she invites Gangyu to fight her so they can get to know each other even better. Gangyu tears through Sinka's shield with brute force. Instead of panicking, Sinka grins and calls him incredibly passionate, while Canis warns that Gangyu is far more dangerous than they expected. Just as Gangyu's attack is about to land, Sinka opens a portal beneath him and throws him outside the prison. Gangyu realizes he's suddenly standing above the facility. Then he hears Sinka's voice behind him. Speaking through another portal, she tells him to cool off before they meet again, then disappears. Still furious, Gangyu crashes straight back into the prison. He tears through the roof, smashes through the ground floor and the first basement, and drops directly into the second basement. Sinka is waiting for him, visibly excited. Gangyu immediately attacks, but Sinka slips away through another portal. Laughing, she says it feels like they're playing hide-and-seek. Gangyu follows with a powerful kick, but she dodges that as well, teasing him that he almost caught her. Gangyu activates Mode 1, creating a massive energy claw. Sinka recognizes the technique from the first basement. He swings the claw at her, but she closes her portal just in time. As she reappears behind him, she tells him to wait a second, only to find the claw already waiting for her. She narrowly escapes again, jumping through portal after portal as Gangyu relentlessly closes the distance. Just as Gangyu is about to land a decisive blow, Gato grabs his arm by wrapping her entire body around him like a cat. She even lets out a playful meow. Watching from a portal, Sinka complains that Gato ruined all the fun. Gato fires back that if she hadn't intervened, Sinka would already be dead. Gangyu grabs Gato by the head and slams her into the ground. Lightning explodes across the floor. He lifts her up and smashes her down again with even greater force. When Sinka and Canis look over, Gato's body is completely gone. Then Gato's voice echoes from a portal. She reminds Sinka that she warned her and reveals she only lost one of her lives. Like a cat with multiple lives, she still has several remaining. Sinka looks disappointed while Gato urges her to make a decision quickly. With tears in her eyes, Sinka laments that Gato's genes are too precious for something like this to happen. Gangyu responds by activating Mode 5, creating countless energy spheres. Sinka counters by opening portals across multiple dimensions. Portals spread throughout the second basement, and prisoners from the third and fourth basements begin emerging. Gangyu is stunned. Sinka proudly declares that these criminals are the true members of the new humanity and will become its future leaders. The first to appear are the B3 level prisoners, each considered a national threat. A Swede, a summoner captured by Mago in Finland, who says Mago should have died by his hands. Ho, a physical type user who asks who could possibly control her. Freya Tua, a physical type user who wonders whether someone his age still belongs here. Natura, a special type user who tells Freya Tua that everyone still has a purpose. Pekaniu, a frightened special type user. Vidi, a special type user who notices Gang Yu's correction officer uniform and says he might use it as inspiration while casually smoking. Moore's a special type user who reminds Vidi that smoking belongs in the designated area. Xinxi and Tiburon, both physical type users, with Tiburon questioning Xinxi's strange muttering. Hyun Juyoung, a special type user who laughs, saying this place has gathered people even more dangerous than demons. Next come the B4 level prisoners, criminals classified as continent level threats. Tatsu Jin, a physical type user. Stiffness, another physical type user who mocks those who rely on weapons. Terapier, a physical type user who recognizes number 4. Maldity, who possesses both summoning and special type abilities and comments on how comfortable the prison clothes are. Hyro, a special type user. Finally, Gang Yu's eyes fall on the B5 level prisoners, the ones considered threats to the entire world. The first is Ahura, a special type user. Then Hwang appears. In one hand, he's holding Gang Ho, Gang Yu's older brother. Smiling, Hwang tells Gang Yu that they've finally met again. The moment Gang Yu sees Hwang's face, he releases a form he has never used before, Mode 0. Red and black lightning engulfs his entire body as his power reaches a completely new level. Hwang's eyes light up with excitement. Looking straight at Gang Yu, he smiles and says, "Then let's play." With both monsters standing face to face, Gang Yu prepares to strike. Gang Yu charges straight at Hwang, while Hwang calmly prepares to meet him head-on. The instant they clash, Hwang compresses space itself into a shield, stopping Gang Yu's attack. Their collision shakes the entire prison. Even the other prisoners are stunned. Some compare the fight to wild beasts, while others worry the shockwaves alone could kill everyone nearby. In the control room, the officers panic and urge Warden Zhou to evacuate, while she can only watch in disbelief as the prison begins falling apart. Gang Yu is now fighting in his brand new form, Mode 0. Every B3 and B4 prisoner had been captured by equality, but none of them had ever seen Gang Yu fight at full power. Seeing this form, Hyro finally understands why Rayasa always kept Gang Yu away from the battlefield. Terapier says Gang Yu's aura resembles Murutu when it manifests. The reactions are mixed. Vidi is fascinated and inspired. Stiffness is thrilled. A Swede and Tatsujin can't hide their jealousy, while Sinka is left in tears. Hwang, however, is absolutely excited. He keeps praising Gang Yu, convinced he's still hiding even more power. Gang Yu answers with a punch, but Hwang blocks it effortlessly before knocking him across the room. Gang Yu immediately rushes back, only for Hwang's compressed space shield to stop him again. A massive explosion erupts from the collision. Watching the exchange, Maldity realizes Hwang hasn't even used his physical combat skills yet. If he's already this powerful as a child, she can't imagine how terrifying he'll become as an adult. Hwang calls out, saying he knows that attack wasn't enough to hurt Gang Yu. The very next second, Gang Yu suddenly appears in front of him and lands a crushing punch to Hwang's face, drawing blood. He follows with another devastating blow to the stomach, launching Hwang across the prison and smashing him into a wall. Xinxi cheers excitedly, while Tiburon calls it a battle between monsters. But before anyone can react, Gang Yu suddenly turns on the other prisoners. He instantly beheads Xinxi and Tiburon, killing both of them on the spot. Without slowing down, he charges toward a Swede, fully intending to wipe out every prisoner in the room. A Swede blocks the attack using one of Mago's defensive shields. Admiring the magic, he calls it a true masterpiece and says it's a shame Mago died so soon. He even asks Gang Yu if seeing that shield reminds him of his fallen teammates. Gang Yu doesn't answer. He simply begins tearing the shield apart. As the barrier starts cracking, a Swede admits he's jealous of Gang Yu's overwhelming power. Gang Yu shatters the shield and moves in to finish him. Before he can strike, Hyro rushes in from the side and lands a powerful kick, forcing Gang Yu back a few steps. Gang Yu immediately prepares to continue fighting, but Hwang interrupts him. He declares that Gang Yu belongs to him alone and accuses him of holding back to protect the remaining correction officers. According to Hwang, Gang Yu is still being too soft. Then Hwang raises his hand. The entire prison suddenly falls silent. And in the next instant, the entire structure begins to crack apart. Warden Zhou realizes the prison is about to collapse. The control room shakes violently, and everyone struggles to stay on their feet. Even a Swede looks up in shock. With a grin, Hwang announces that it's finally time to fight at full power. The entire prison begins collapsing around them. Ruculus prison begins collapsing, and Warden Zhou realizes the entire facility is coming down. As the structure falls apart, Gang Yu quickly uses his ability to surround Zhou and the remaining correction officers with protective spheres. He safely launches them out of the prison before the collapse can reach them. Meanwhile, Hwang casually comments on how surprisingly durable the prison was. Gang Yu immediately appears in front of him and moves in for another attack, but before the punch lands, Sinka opens a portal and throws Gang Yu outside the prison. She remarks that attacking an opponent while they're using their ability isn't very fair. Turning to the others, Sinka asks if everyone should leave as well since the collapsing prison is filling the area with dust. Instead of using the portal, Tatsujin walks over to the sealed gate. She places her hand on the floor, creates a massive sword, and slices the gate into countless pieces with a single strike. Even Sinka is surprised. She points out that they could simply use her portals to leave, but Tatsujin ignores her. Outside, Gangyu suddenly appears in the middle of a city street. Civilians stare at him in confusion, wondering who he is, but another portal immediately opens beneath his feet, pulling him away before anyone can react. Sinka transports him straight to the battlefield. Gangyu arrives just as H-Wang is controlling a gigantic sphere of rubble. H-Wang detonates the entire mass directly at him. Gangyu doesn't dodge. He takes the blast head-on. The explosion clears the entire battlefield, and when the dust settles, Gangyu is still standing. Blood runs down his forehead, but he's unfazed. The rest of the escaped prisoners gather to watch. Sinka orders everyone to stay out of the fight. No one is allowed to interfere. This battle belongs to Gangyu and H-Wang alone. Normally, the B3 and B4 prisoners would never listen to anyone, but they obey Sinka for a reason. Earlier, Sinka had recruited them by exploiting their deepest desires. She promised to fulfill what each of them wanted in exchange for joining her vision of the Alpha world. For those who refused, she offered only one alternative: death. She approached H-Wang with the same proposal. H-Wang laughed at her plan to create a new humanity, and found it amusing that she intended to marry Gangyu first, then eventually marry him as well. Sinka argued that chasing only short-term excitement would eventually become boring. If H-Wang killed Gangyu now, he'd lose the greatest opponent he'd ever have. Instead, she proposed a long-term future where Gangyu remained alive. H-Wang continued growing stronger, and future generations with superior abilities would keep challenging him for the rest of his life. H-Wang actually considers the idea. Eventually, he agrees because it sounds far more entertaining. He makes one thing clear, though: he doesn't love Sinka. Completely unfazed, Sinka confidently replies that once he grows up, he'll fall in love with her anyway. Back in the present, Gangyu lands another crushing punch that sends H-Wang flying. H-Wang wipes the blood from his mouth and realizes one hand won't be enough anymore. He tries to provoke Gangyu into talking, asking whether he can even speak while using Mode 0. Then H-Wang points to the sphere of flesh he's carrying. He reveals that it's Gangyu's brother. The moment Gangyu hears that, his rage explodes. For the first time in this form, he shouts and charges straight at H-Wang. H-Wang smiles. "So, you can talk." Gangyu charges straight at H-Wang. H-Wang instantly reshapes the surrounding rocks into razor-sharp spikes and launches them from every direction. Gangyu smashes each one with his fists, destroying every attack as it comes. Then he senses another object flying toward him. He prepares to destroy it too, but stops at the last second. It isn't another rock, it's his brother. Before Gangyu can react, H-Wang manipulates Gangho's body with his ability and slams him directly into Gangyu, sending Gangyu crashing into a cliff. Holding Gangho, H-Wang laughs. He realizes Gangyu can't attack while his brother is being used as a shield. Then he jokingly suggests eating Gangho so Gangyu would finally be free to hit him, even crushing the body slightly as he talks about making it easier to swallow. Gangyu immediately interrupts him with a devastating kick to the stomach. H-Wang spits blood as he's driven into the ground. Gangyu follows with one brutal punch after another, relentlessly hammering H-Wang while every escaped prisoner watches the fight. Finally, H-Wang grabs Gangyu's arm. Using his space compression ability again, he unleashes another massive blast that launches Gangyu high into the air. Watching from the sidelines, Sinka is amazed. She says the two of them would have been incredible together. Gato immediately disagrees, and Canis agrees as well, saying the battle looks like it's finally reaching its end. Both fighters lie on the ground. H-Wang notices Gangyu slowly standing back up. His Mode 0 has disappeared. But something even stranger happens. Violent black-handed lightning begins erupting from Gangyu's body. The surrounding prisoners stare in shock. Even Sinka has no idea what she's looking at. The lightning completely surrounds H-Wang, trapping him inside. Instead of panicking, H-Wang smiles. He admits Gangyu has too many abilities and says defeating him in a fair fight seems impossible. Then he asks Gangyu what it feels like to kill people. According to H-Wang, they're both the same. Their power has become so overwhelming that opponents die before they can truly enjoy the fight, leaving them both frustrated and unfulfilled. Gangyu cuts him off, telling him to stop talking. But H-Wang continues. He claims Gangyu has spent years suppressing his true strength because he chose to stand beside weaker people instead of embracing his own power. Gangyu refuses to accept it. "You don't know anything." H-Wang laughs again. He realizes this lightning technique is probably Gangyu's final move and admits he's reached his own limit as well. He even wonders whether becoming an adult someday would finally make him strong enough to defeat Gangyu. Gangyu gives him a cold answer. That day will never come, because you're going to die here. Outside the sphere of lightning, Cinco watches in alarm. The entire sphere shakes violently as countless bolts pierce through Wang's body from every direction. She quickly opens a portal to check on him. Inside, Wang is being relentlessly impaled by Gangyu's lightning. It looks like Gangyu won't stop until Wang is dead. Gangyu's lightning tears through Wang's body, making him scream in agony. Seeing this, Cinco panics. She rushes through a portal to reach Wang. Gangyu's barrier has disappeared, but the lightning is still raging inside Wang's body. Desperate, Cinco begs someone to heal him. Terapier steps forward and tells her to move aside. He thrusts his hand directly into Wang's chest, trying to remove the lightning from inside his body. The lightning spreads onto Terapier's arm, but he notices that, even in this condition, Wang somehow protected all of his vital organs. His survival instincts are unbelievable. Once the treatment is complete, Terapier tears off his own arm to get rid of the lingering lightning before instantly regenerating it. Then he asks the others what they should do about Gangyu. Pyro answers without hesitation. They have to kill him. Cinco stops them. Before Gangyu dies, she wants one last chance to talk to him. Meanwhile, Gangyu lies motionless on the battlefield. He's exhausted and barely able to move. He slowly crawls over to his brother's body. At last, the two brothers are reunited. Before he can process the moment, Cinco approaches him again and offers him one final chance to join her. Instead of answering, Gangyu begins gathering lightning in his hand, preparing one last attack despite being completely drained. Cinco admits she simply can't understand him. Before Gangyu can strike, a Swede uses his ability to extinguish the lightning gathering in his hand. He declares that negotiations are over. If they wait even a little longer, Gangyu might recover enough energy to fight again, so they need to kill him immediately. One by one, the prisoners agree. Some feel sorry for him, others admit they're afraid of fighting him. But every one of them reaches the same conclusion. Gangyu has to die. The prisoners surround him. Then Hiro steps forward. His body suddenly grows to a gigantic size, towering over everyone else. The other prisoners barely reach his feet. Hiro throws a massive punch. Instead of defending himself, Gangyu uses the last of his strength to shield his brother's body. The moment Hiro attacks, the rest of the B3 and B4 prisoners join in, launching a relentless assault. Even after all of that, Gangyu is still alive. He quietly wonders how much time has passed while continuing to protect his brother. Hiro raises his leg for the finishing blow. Just before the kick lands, Wang catches Hiro's leg. Looking at Cinco, Wang reminds her that she once said he'd become even stronger as an adult. Now, for the first time, he has a real dream. He wants to defeat Gangyu himself. No one else is allowed to kill him. A Swede immediately protests, insisting they should finish Gangyu while they have the chance. But Cinco orders everyone to leave. She reminds them they all promised to follow her commands. This time, every prisoner obeys. As they leave the battlefield, Cinco asks Wang if he needs help. He refuses. Looking back at Gangyu, Wang makes a promise. The next time we meet, I'll be the one who wins. Gangyu remains on the battlefield, holding his brother's body. By the end of the prison incident, 8 B3 prisoners, 5 B4 prisoners, and 3 B5 prisoners have escaped. Watching everything from a distance is Kingston. He laughs quietly to himself. The world has become far noisier than before, just as he expected. Cinco is about to throw the entire world into chaos. Cinco hijacks every screen across the world and begins a global broadcast. Welcome to the Alpha World. Cinco introduces herself as the future Eve of a new humanity, while Canis and Gato introduce themselves beside her. The broadcast explains that Alpha World is a new society created to save humanity. Then it answers the next question: who can join Alpha World? Gato lists 3 requirements. You must possess a powerful ability. You must support eliminating weaker genes. You must be physically healthy enough to have children. The next question asks what will happen to people who don't qualify. Cinco doesn't hesitate. She declares that people with weaker genes are committing a crime simply by existing and therefore deserve to die. According to her, anyone who deserves death should be executed. She announces that over the next month they'll begin selecting neo-humans to join Alpha World. Invitations will be sent out worldwide. Anyone who rejects the invitation will be treated as someone protecting weaker genes, and they'll be eliminated as well. Ending the broadcast, Cinco wishes prosperity for the neo-humans before signing off. The transmission ends, and normal programming returns. The recording is being replayed during an emergency meeting of the World Security Council, where leaders from around the world gather to discuss both the prison incident and Cinco's declaration. World President Bezet officially opens the meeting. The council quickly confirms that Cinco was responsible for the EMP attack on Ruculus prison. One member asks whether she's already listed as a wanted villain. The answer is no. The Hero Association confirms Cinco wasn't previously on their radar. Another member points out the disturbing timing. The equality team had barely fallen before this entire crisis erupted. As everyone debates how to respond, Einheit, leader of the Harmony Party, shifts the discussion toward Warden Zhou. He argues that she had no authority to order Gang Yu to execute prisoners without approval from higher officials, claiming her decision created an even bigger disaster. Former Hero Association Chairman Yudariti, now leader of the World Party, immediately defends Zhou. He argues that there wasn't a single second to waste during the prison emergency, and insists she made the only reasonable decision. Justice Minister Algido agrees that executions shouldn't normally be authorized so easily, but admits the circumstances were exceptional. Fire Commissioner Boda warns that countless lives are now at risk. Police Commissioner Krum adds that law enforcement has already been overwhelmed since Cinco's broadcast aired. National Defense Minister Guerra asks the question everyone is thinking. Is this still just a prison escape? Or has it become a war? Yudariti slams the table. He insists every escaped criminal must be executed immediately. Then he blames everyone else for the current disaster. According to him, if he had remained chairman of the Hero Association, those prisoners would have been executed long before any of this could happen. He argues that everything changed after Rayasa became chairman. Boda fires back, saying Yudariti hasn't changed at all. Einheit reminds him that the heroes under his leadership were mentally unstable. Yudariti dismisses the criticism, arguing that he'd rather have unstable heroes than future villains. Einheit counters by asking whether simply carrying the title of hero automatically makes someone a hero. Yudariti argues that Rayasa's reforms pushed people who could have become heroes onto the path of villainy. Boda responds that their definitions of justice are completely different. Frustrated, Yudariti accuses everyone else of living in an idealistic fantasy while refusing to face reality. Before the argument escalates further, President Bezit quietly asks what Rayasa would have said if she were still alive. Since Rayasa's death, the position of Hero Association chairman has remained vacant. The comment visibly irritates Yudariti. He storms out of the meeting. Outside, his secretary asks how it went. Yudariti dismisses the meeting as pointless. In his view, the solution has always been simple: kill the criminals. He once again blames Rayasa for the current situation. When his secretary asks what they'll do next, Yudariti explains that after Rayasa became chairman, the World Security Council split into political factions. One side supported rehabilitation, while the other favored harsher punishment, with the justice minister remaining neutral. Previously, his side was consistently outvoted. But now the Hero Association chairman's seat is empty. If they place one of their own in that position, the balance of power will shift, forcing the council to take their position seriously. That's why Yudariti decides to meet Gang Yu, the last surviving member of Equality. He's convinced the other political factions have already begun making their own moves as well. His secretary points out that Gang Yu was extremely close to Rayasa. Yudariti agrees, but believes everything has changed now. Gang Yu dreams of his fallen teammates. He asks them a question that's been haunting him. Why can't heroes kill villains? Yuge laughs, saying he once asked the exact same question after joining Equality. He tells Gang Yu that, with time, he'll find the answer himself. Hub admits he never wanted to take another person's life. If being a hero meant becoming a killer, he would have quit long ago. Tommy remembers her own sister, who was sentenced to death. She believes her sister deserved punishment, but still should have been given one chance to repent. Then Mago speaks. Instead of answering, he asks Gang Yu another question. Why should heroes take a villain's life? Is it because villains have no value, or because they no longer deserve to be called human? Mago explains that deciding a person's value, or even defining what it means to be human, is far more complicated than it seems. Rayasa follows with her own answer. A hero's job isn't to take lives. A hero's job is to save them. She reaches out her hand, inviting Gang Yu to keep saving people together. Gang Yu watches all of them disappear without giving him the simple answer he wanted. Then Officer Hong appears. She reminds him that a correction officer's duty is rehabilitation. She isn't against the death penalty, but believes every criminal deserves to understand what they did wrong before facing execution. Finally, Gang Yu sees his older brother, Gang Ho. Gang Ho tells him that the law decides punishment. As officers, their responsibility is simply to enforce it. Suddenly, Gang Ho's body folds into a sphere, and that sphere transforms into the one H-Wang was holding. H-Wang appears once again, mocking Gang Yu. He points out that after everything that's happened, everyone still keeps repeating the same ideals. Gang Yu suddenly wakes up. Startled, he hears Lippis calling his name. She's sitting beside his hospital bed. Lippis immediately apologizes. She says she should have come to help, but Warden Zhou kept the prison riot hidden, leaving her unsure of what was really happening. Gang Yu tells her it wouldn't have mattered. Even if she'd been there, nothing would have changed. Lippis asks how he's feeling after being ordered to execute prisoners. Gang Yu finally admits the truth. He's not okay. He angrily says he should have killed every one of those criminals. But he couldn't do it. Then he warns Lippis not to lecture him about what heroes are supposed to do. He's not a hero anymore. He's a correction officer. Lippis is stunned. She reveals that the Hero Association plans to rebuild after Equality's collapse. For now, she'll serve as acting chairwoman, but eventually they'll need someone to lead the organization. Their first choice is Gang Yu himself. Gang Yu refuses without hesitation. He repeats that he's no longer a hero. Once he recovers, he'll do what he believes he has to do. Before Lippis can respond, another voice interrupts. Yudariti walks into the room. He praises Gang Yu for enduring the burden of executing criminals. Then he makes a shocking announcement. He's planning to become the next Hero Association chairman. And once elected, he'll officially grant heroes the authority to execute criminals. Lippis is left speechless. Gang Yu points out that Yudariti is currently the leader of the World Party. Yudariti explains he'll soon resign so he can run for chairman. He originally came to see whether Gang Yu wanted the position. Now he already has his answer. Pretending it was only a friendly visit, Yudariti wishes Gang Yu a quick recovery before leaving. As he walks away, he quietly tells the rabbit to watch what happens next. Lippis scoffs, asking if he seriously believes anyone would elect him. Yudariti simply smiles. Time will decide. After he leaves, Lippis calls out to Gang Yu again. Exhausted, Gang Yu asks her to leave. She never expected him to change this much after waking up. Meanwhile, Yudariti tells his secretary exactly what he expected. Everyone has already begun making their move. Lippis isn't the only one trying to recruit Gang Yu. Others will soon try to bring him onto their side as well. As abilities spread across the world, ordinary governments have become increasingly dependent on powerful ability users instead of traditional military and police forces. The World Security Council is now preparing to debate whether Gang Yu should legally receive the authority to execute criminals. Under current law, his actions at Ruthless prison were illegal. His secretary asks what he'll do next. Soon, another council meeting begins. Einheit argues that Warden Joe must be punished for violating the law. Police Commissioner Crumb disagrees. She says the prison crisis was an extraordinary situation, and if one of her own subordinates had made the same decision, she would have overlooked it as well. Before Einheit can continue, Yudariti cuts him off. He accuses Einheit of offering no practical solution and only clinging to unrealistic ideals. Einheit immediately fires back. He says he already proposed the solution. The police, military, and emergency forces should work together to capture every escaped criminal. And let the legal system decide their punishment. Yudariti mocks the idea, saying it sounds like something from a fantasy world. World President Bezit then asks Yudariti for his own solution. Yudariti answers without hesitation. He proposes holding a nationwide vote to decide whether Correction Officer Gang Yu should officially be granted the legal authority to execute criminals. Bezit is stunned. A public vote? Yudariti nods. Instead of endless arguments behind closed doors, he says the people should decide. After all, every leader in the room is supposed to serve the public. Einheit immediately objects. He warns that leaving a decision like this to public opinion could have dangerous consequences. Yudariti fires back. He accuses Einheit of looking down on ordinary people and says the only reason he's resisting a vote is because he knows he'll lose. Then he turns to President Bezit. Am I wrong, Mr. President? After a moment of thought, Bezit agrees. The vote moves forward. 2 weeks later, the council gathers again to reveal the results. The secretary announces that 88% of voters support granting Gang Yu execution authority, while only 12% oppose it. The proposal wins by an overwhelming margin. Yudariti isn't surprised. Einheit, meanwhile, has nothing to say. The secretary summarizes the public's reasoning. Supporters believe the Ruthless prison incident marked the beginning of a war. In their eyes, these enemies are no different from beasts, so ordinary laws shouldn't apply. Some even argue that every hero, not just Gang Yu, should receive the authority to execute criminals. Those against the proposal believe Gang Yu is still emotionally unstable after everything he's experienced. Giving one man that much power could repeat the mistakes of previous generations, where a single person's judgment was allowed to stand above the law. Both sides, however, agree that the current crisis is unlike anything the world has faced before. Einheit proposes finding a balance between both viewpoints. Yudariti immediately rejects the idea. He argues the vote settled the issue once and for all, and there's no reason to ignore the people's decision. Before the debate escalates again, President Bezit ends it. He orders everyone to bring Gang Yu in. After the meeting, Bezit speaks with Gang Yu privately. He asks if Gang Yu has already heard the results. Gang Yu says he has. Bezit asks what he'll do. Gang Yu answers without hesitation. He'll accept the public's decision. and personally execute every escaped criminal. Bezit then asks a different question. What if the vote had gone the other way? Gang Yu calmly replies that nothing would have changed. He still would have hunted down every criminal, and afterwards surrendered himself for breaking the law. The answer catches Bezit off guard. He asks one final question. If Rayasa were still alive, what do you think she would have done? Gang Yu falls silent. He says that's a question only Rayasa could answer. Bezit asks one last thing before Gang Yu leaves. When all of this is over, will you become a hero again? Gang Yu walks away without looking back. I don't know. Soon afterward, a special law is passed. Because of the Ruculus prison escape, President Bezit officially grants Correction Officer Gang Yu the legal authority to execute every escaped criminal. Utariti is thrilled. He calls it the first step toward restoring the world to the way it used to be. Lippis hears the announcement and silently accepts it. Officer Hong reacts very differently. Holding Gang Ho's ashes in her hands, she breaks down in tears. The news quickly reaches the neo-humans. Sinka smiles. So that's their decision. She turns toward the escaped criminals. Now it's our move. Looking at them, she asks, Are you ready, my executioners? Wang looks especially excited. He's still wearing Gang Ho's cap. Not long after the announcement, the world government receives alarming reports from the Iberian Peninsula. Portals have begun appearing across the sky. Exactly as Sinka promised, invitations are being delivered to people with what she considers superior genes to recruit them into Alpha World. But she doesn't wait for the full month she originally promised. Only a few days later, civilians notice another portal opening overhead. A massive green magic circle appears. It's a Swede's ability. A gigantic explosion tears through the city. Moments later, a Swede arrives alongside Moors, Ju-young, and Ho. Ho is thrilled by the destruction. Moors criticizes him, pointing out that some of the people in the city may have accepted Alpha World's invitation, making the attack completely unnecessary. The Swede shrugs. He says anyone who dies from a small attack like that was never worthy of Alpha World in the first place. Suddenly, every screen across the world lights up. Sinka appears once again. She smiles at the cameras. Hi, I'm Sinka. Thanks for giving me your attention. Then her expression turns cold. Now, let's begin the execution of the inferior genes. As the 4 neo-humans begin slaughtering civilians, Gang Yu quietly puts on his correction officer's cap, without another word. He prepares to execute the criminals. The World Council holds another emergency meeting. The secretary briefs everyone on the escaped criminals based on intelligence from the Hero Association. First is a Swede, who was captured by Equality hero Mago. The tattoos covering his body represent stolen abilities, allowing him to copy other summoning skills. A Swede continues leveling the city, frustrated that the destruction isn't increasing his power. He regrets never stealing Mago's ability. Next is Ho, also known as Vixen, who was captured by Equality member Yuge. She can transform into a fox demon and has already slaughtered countless civilians while searching for someone strong enough to challenge her. The secretary moves on to Ju-young, who was captured by Equality member Herb. He specializes in summoning demonic creatures and unleashes the mythical lion Hidi, sending it on a killing spree alongside Ho. The final criminal is Moors, captured by Equality member Tommy. Like other summoners, she possesses multiple complex abilities. She uses a summon to seize a fleeing civilian before killing him, calling people with inferior genes uncivilized. The secretary reports that the Hero Association has already deployed heroes to the area. Utariti dismisses the effort, pointing out that heroes still don't have the authority to kill the escaped criminals. President Bezit issues new orders. The fire departments will focus on rescuing civilians. The military and police will protect the population. Police Commissioner Crumb notes that, once again, the police are being forced to support the heroes because they lack the power to stop these criminals themselves. Bezit asks Justice Minister Elgido where Gang Yu is. Elgido explains that, according to Warden Zhou, Gang Yu left for the Iberian Peninsula immediately after watching Sinka's broadcast. Einheit interrupts, questioning why Warden Zhou still hasn't been removed from her position. Bezit then asks if they've learned the enemy's true objective. The secretary admits they still don't know. The story shifts to an earlier conversation before the attack. Sinka explains the mission to her followers. Their objective isn't simply killing people. Their priority is eliminating those with inferior genes while gathering everyone who accepted Alpha World's invitation. She wants the world to witness what's coming so invited candidates will be easier to recruit. Instead of wasting time on mass slaughter, she orders everyone to focus on bringing the invitees together. There will be plenty of opportunities to eliminate inferior genes later. Moors immediately tells the others to stop fighting and follow Sinka's orders. Ho complains that she wanted to keep having fun. Ju-young agrees they should focus on the mission. A Swede refuses. He says he'll handle things his own way. If he keeps destroying the city, the invitees will eventually come to him anyway. Mors furiously warns him that he's openly disobeying their queen. A Swede doesn't care. Ju-young summons a three-legged crow and leaves with Ho. Mors follows, warning a Swede that Sinka will hear about his actions once the mission is over. A Swede ignores them and continues destroying the city. He realizes that despite all the destruction, his power hasn't grown at all. He concludes that stealing stronger abilities is his only path forward. Suddenly, a gigantic rabbit crashes down on him. A Swede barely survives by protecting himself with Mago's shield. The attacker is Lippis. She tells him that prison hasn't changed him at all and asks if he learned nothing during his imprisonment. A Swede smiles when he sees her. He says he's glad she came and asks whether Mago received a proper funeral. The two prepare to fight. The scene then shifts to the Lisbon Institute, a school that guides children with superpowers. One frightened child tells his teacher he's scared. The teacher, Prof, reassures everyone that he'll protect them and begins leading the children toward an evacuation shelter after hearing about the attacks. Before they can leave, Prof hears someone clapping. It's Mors. After destroying part of the city, she's come to the institute to collect Prof and the children who received Alpha World's invitation. She praises Prof for being such a dedicated teacher. The frightened children hide behind him. Mors mocks their lack of manners. Recognizing her, Prof calls her by name. Mors says she's not surprised her reputation reached him first. She tells him not to worry. Sinka invited them personally. If he gathers the invited children and comes with her, there won't be any problems. Prof refuses, protecting his students. Mors calmly replies that interrupting a lady is bad manners, and decides it's time to teach him some. After the meal and mail incident, Rayasa and Mago established special institutes around the world to help children develop their abilities while teaching them how to become responsible members of society. At one of those institutes, Mors arrives. She raises her hand and activates her special ability, instantly forcing everyone into silence. Prof watches in confusion as she claps. The moment she does, every child's mouth is sealed by her ability, leaving them unable to speak. Satisfied, Mors remarks that things are finally quiet. Her special type ability, etiquette, only affects people she considers beneath her. It allows her to restrain, injure, and silence her targets at will. She then summons several strange spheres and warns everyone against making any suspicious moves. Next, she calls forward the 3 children who received Alpha World invitations. Reading from her list, she notes that all 3 possess special type abilities and tells them they'll become part of Alpha World. She releases her hold on them and asks for their answer. Instead of accepting, the children refuse. One says he doesn't want to join because Alpha World plans to kill people without abilities, including many of his friends. Another refuses because her parents have no powers and have done nothing wrong. The third explains that Prof taught them never to discriminate or use their powers to dominate others. She calls Mors evil and demands to leave. Enraged, Mors attacks. Her ability appears around the children's necks. But nothing happens. Prof has intercepted the damage. Instead of the children being injured, his own throat is slashed. Prof is a special type user known as Bodyguard. His ability allows him to transfer any damage from others onto himself. Realizing what happened, Mors understands why Sinka wanted Prof alive. She says Alpha World needs someone with his ability to serve as the Queen's bodyguard, and calls it a waste that he'll have to die. Prof begins mentioning her past, but Mors immediately cuts him off. She accuses Tommy of telling him about her history and refuses to discuss it. She reminds him that she's only there to guide those chosen for Alpha World. Then she makes him an offer. If he hands over the children, she'll spare his life. Prof refuses. Mors asks why he's risking everything. When he admits none of the children are his own, she can't understand his decision. Prof gives a simple answer. Because he's their teacher. The story briefly looks back at his past. Although Prof was officially registered with the Hero Association, he was classified as only a 5th-tier hero despite being durable enough to withstand B3 and B4 level threats. The reason was simple. He had no ability to kill. When Yudariti led the Hero Association, he questioned why Prof hadn't quit, saying heroes who only served as punching bags weren't needed. Everything changed after Rayasa became chairwoman. Instead of dismissing him, she asked him to become both a hero and an institute teacher. She explained that educating children with abilities was one of the most important jobs in the world. When Prof doubted himself, Rayasa told him he was the noblest hero of all. By risking his own life to protect others, he had become a hero among heroes. The story returns to the present. Mors tells Prof to convince the children himself, believing they'll listen because he's their teacher. Instead, Prof warns her that the world has already been devastated by wars triggered by superpowers. Countless sacrifices were made just to rebuild society. If Sinka succeeds, everything humanity rebuilt will collapse once again. Mors coldly replies that she doesn't care if society falls apart. Prof disagrees. He says she does care. If society collapses, the next generation will suffer the same pain she once experienced. The mention of her past sends Moors into a rage. She insists he knows nothing about her. Prof calmly answers that they know far more than she thinks. Furious, Moors summons countless razor-sharp pillars aimed directly at the children. Once again, Prof redirects every bit of damage onto himself. His body is pierced instead of theirs. Moors declares that he'll pay for insulting her and prepares to kill everyone. Before she can strike again, a devastating kick slams into her head, driving her into the ground and cracking the earth beneath her. Gang Yu has arrived. With his foot pinning Moors to the ground, he orders her to call Sinka. Moors is furious when Gang Yu calls Sinka a crazy woman. She binds his arms and neck with chains using her ability, then tries to execute him with a blade. Gang Yu shatters the chains and the blade at the same time, then drives a devastating punch into Moors, smashing her into the ground so hard that the surrounding area shakes. Her face is left completely mangled as she screams in pain. Gang Yu orders Prof to take the children and leave immediately. Prof warns him that Moors' ability is still active, and the children are still impaled by its effects. Without hesitation, Gang Yu repeatedly punches Moors in the stomach until she's barely conscious. As soon as she's defeated, her ability disappears completely. The children are finally freed, and Prof evacuates them while Gang Yu grabs Moors by the collar and again demands that she call Sinka. Instead, Moors activates her true form, Lady Mode. Gang Yu notices that her bleeding instantly stops and her appearance changes. She summons puppet-like servants that restrain both of Gang Yu's arms while declaring that ladies should always go first. She creates a special lady zone, explaining that she never expected Gang Yu to come after her. Lady Mode is Moors' true form. Anyone who recognizes her as a lady becomes vulnerable to her ability, but only if she considers them weaker than herself. She already knows it won't truly work on Gang Yu, the man who tore through Sinka's space manipulation with his bare hands. Her only goal is to stall him long enough for her teammates to finish their mission. Gang Yu tears through the puppets and keeps advancing. Believing she's about to die, Moors continues buying as much time as possible. When Gang Yu asks one final time if she'll call Sinka, Moors instead praises her queen, insisting Gang Yu should feel honored that Sinka personally chose him. Gang Yu activates Mode 1, forming his claw. Panicking, Moors suddenly claims she'll reveal Sinka's location, hoping to buy more time. Gang Yu refuses. He says he doesn't need directions because after killing her, he can have a psychometric hero read her memories and find Sinka himself. Realizing she overlooked that possibility, Moors desperately tries to keep him talking. She questions whether he really believes he can defeat all of them, warning that this time Sinka won't be saved. Gang Yu ignores her and prepares the killing blow. Just before his attack lands, a familiar shield appears between them. Sinka has arrived. Moors immediately warns her that it's too dangerous to be there. At the same moment, Gang Yu activates Mode 0. Protected by her shield, Sinka observes that Gang Yu is using his strongest form from the very beginning, proving he never changed his mind. She also points out that Mode 0 drains him quickly, and questions whether using it now is worth it. Gang Yu answers by smashing through her shield with a single punch. He makes it clear that he's willing to use everything he has if it means killing her. Rather than panic, Sinka smiles. She says she's actually happy to see how obsessed he is with her, and jokingly wonders if that obsession might even be love. Gang Yu shatters Sinka's shield and charges straight at her. Sinka tells Moors to leave her behind and focus on the people who rejected Alpha World's invitations. Just as Gang Yu's punch is about to hit Moors, Sinka teleports her away, right in front of Prof. Moors staggers toward the children, coughing up blood. Gang Yu's punch had already torn open her stomach. The frightened children hide behind Prof, who orders them to keep moving. Despite her injuries, Moors blocks their path. One of the children suddenly recognizes her from a textbook, leaving Moors momentarily stunned. Meanwhile, Gang Yu prepares his ultimate technique. Sinka notices it and questions why he's using his strongest move so early. Gang Yu returns to his normal form and declares that this will be the place where she dies. Sinka points out that the technique should only be usable in Mode 0, and realizes he's pushing his body beyond its limits. Gang Yu attacks, but Sinka opens a portal and redirects his attack back at him. Relieved, she realizes his own power doesn't affect him. She then summons Canis and Gato into the battlefield. Both are shocked to find themselves trapped inside Dark Heaven Prison, Gang Yu's personal dimension. They immediately realize they shouldn't have entered. Gato argues that escaping should be the priority since Gang Yu is already using his ultimate technique. Sinka agrees and tries to open a portal, but nothing happens. Gang Yu reveals that Dark Heaven Prison is a sealed space. Once someone enters, there's no escape. During his fight with H-Wang, Sinka had rescued H-Wang from outside the dimension. This time, she's trapped inside Gang Yu's territory, making escape impossible. Now visibly nervous, Sinka admits the ability is incredibly dangerous. Gang Yu attacks again, smashing through her shield as it begins to crack apart. Seeing the situation, Canis asks Sinka to remove the leashes suppressing his and Gato's powers. Sinka hesitates, because she promised H-Wang that he would be the one to defeat Gangyu after becoming an adult. Canis points out that they won't survive unless Gangyu is killed. Realizing he is right, Sinka decides H-Wang will understand and agrees to remove the restraints. Just as they're about to release the leashes, everyone senses something above them. A voice echoes through the dimension, declaring that no number of enemies, 10, 100, or even 1,000, could ever defeat him. It claims that anyone who makes him an enemy is making the entire world their enemy. The speaker calls that true invincibility. Kingston has arrived. Gangyu has no idea when he entered the dimension. Kingston tells Gangyu that although he's incredibly strong, he still isn't invincible, and claims he can make that possible. Sinka dismisses him as a crazy old man and demands to know how he even entered this place. Before she can finish, Kingston's punch flashes past her face. She barely dodges in time, but the attack still clips her, leaving blood running from her nose. Canis and Gato immediately rush to support her. Furious, Sinka lashes out at Kingston, but he calmly brushes it aside, making it clear that she poses no threat to him. Sinka lashes out at Kingston, creating a massive explosion. She mocks him for being so old that he could die at any moment. Kingston effortlessly appears behind her and admits her ability is incredibly powerful, strong enough to defeat the white-haired boy. Sinka attacks again, but Kingston dodges with ease before landing a crushing punch that sends her flying. Her shield shatters, and blood pours from her mouth. Kingston points out the biggest flaw shared by both Sinka and Gangyu. He says they've relied so much on their abilities that they completely neglected physical training. He promises to show them what true physical strength really looks like. Sinka opens multiple portals in response. Kingston notices Canis charging in with a kick. Although he blocks it, the impact still pushes him backward, impressing him enough to acknowledge that Canis actually trained his body. Canis and Gato attack together while Sinka supports them from a distance through her portals. Gangyu watches the battle unfold, surprised to see Kingston there. After quickly assessing the situation, he decides to work alongside Kingston to eliminate Sinka. Meanwhile, the World Council receives confirmation that Kingston has entered the fight. The secretary relays Gangyu's report. Boda remarks that Kingston has always been arrogant. Elgido suggests Kingston has finally found someone interesting after a long time. President Bezit briefly wonders whether Gangyu is now in danger. Elgido replies that nobody truly knows Kingston's full strength yet, so they'll have to wait and see what he intends to do. Boda agrees, saying he doesn't believe Kingston is the real problem. Instead, he looks toward an empty chair. The seat belongs to Utority, who is absent from the meeting. The scene then shifts back to Moors. She becomes furious after learning she's included in school textbooks. Prof explains that it isn't just her, all of the ruculous prison criminals are documented. Moors accuses them of treating criminals like losers. Prof clarifies that the purpose isn't ridicule, but understanding. A flashback reveals Gangyu's brother, Gangho, meeting with Rayasa and Mago after the institutes were established. He proposed making criminology a mandatory subject, so future generations could better understand criminals instead of simply fearing them. Back in the present, Moors asks Prof what he thought after reading about her past. Before he can answer, another voice interrupts. It's Utority. He arrives and tells Prof that he never should have kept his job. Then he turns to the children and claims everything they've been taught is wrong. He says he'll show them how the world should really deal with criminals. According to Utority, criminals aren't created by society or their circumstances. He argues that people only say that to manipulate others into feeling sympathy. In his view, criminals are simply born that way. He calls them a cancer on society, and declares that cancer must be eradicated at its root as he prepares to fight. Moors clutches her wound and angrily asks if Utority really sees her as nothing more than a cancer. Before she can finish, Utority cuts her off. He's tired of hearing excuses. He declares that no matter what era or society she had been born into, she would still have become the same monster. In his eyes, she should never have been born at all. Moors tells him to be quiet. Utority calmly puts on his watch and says he can never make her suffer as much as her victims did, but he'll make sure she experiences as much pain as possible. He checks the timer. 10 minutes remain. Utority is both a physical type and special type user, whose ability allows him to accelerate time. Moors accepts the challenge. In an instant, Utority strikes the wound in her stomach, making her cough up blood. She retreats and prepares a counterattack, but he accelerates time again and lands another punch directly into the same injury. He follows with a relentless barrage of blows before driving his knee into her face, shattering her teeth. Another knee crashes into her face as he asks if she's finally starting to feel pain, remarking that Tommy treated her far too kindly. Desperate, Moors summons her puppets. The puppets rush toward Utority, but he accelerates time fourfold and destroys them before they can even touch him. He then punches Moors so hard that she's launched through the air. Before she can hit the ground, he appears beside her, punches her again, and sends her flying even higher. He follows into the air and finishes with a devastating kick, leaving her nearly dead before she crashes back down. Prof and the children watch in complete shock. Utority slams Moors into the ground with another crushing attack, leaving her barely alive. Looking at her battered face, he says she finally understands what pain feels like. Then he kicks the wound in her stomach again, reminding her that her victims and their families suffered far more than she ever has. He checks his watch once more. 3 minutes remain. Moors finally realizes his power is time acceleration. Utority confirms it, explaining that he can control the flow of time. Grabbing her by the face, he reveals that he can also slow time. He slows time specifically for Moors, and coldly tells the cancer of society to suffer slowly as she dies. Prof and the children watch in shock. Only a few minutes have passed for them, but for Moors, Utority's time manipulation made those moments feel like an eternity. Utority lets go of her face and says that if he had more time, he would have made her suffer even longer. To his surprise, Moors starts laughing. He grabs her by the collar and asks if she's gone insane from the fear of dying. Moors admits she's afraid of death, but that's not why she's laughing. She reveals that she actually completed her mission. Confused, Utority asks what she means. Moors explains that anyone affected by her ability will die the moment she dies. Her hidden special type ability is called sacrifice. Prof is horrified as Utority silently looks toward him and the children. Meanwhile, inside Dark Heaven prison, Kingston continues fighting Canis and Gato. He overwhelms them with a relentless barrage of punches. Frustrated, Gato charges at him, but Kingston drops her with a devastating karate chop that smashes her into the ground, cracking the floor beneath them. Canis desperately tells Gato to remove her leash. Before she can react, Kingston punches Canis square in the face and knocks him down. He mocks their arrogance, saying they aren't nearly strong enough to deserve having limiters placed on them. Kingston then attacks again, severing both of their arms. Canis and Gato scream in agony. Without emotion, Kingston tells them to pick up their arms and find a healer who can reattach them. Nearby, Cinca watches in disbelief, wondering who this old man really is. Before she can react further, Gangyu drives a punch into her stomach. She coughs up blood and is launched backward. Gangyu closes the distance immediately. Cinca desperately raises another shield and begs him to stay back. Gangyu shatters the shield, follows with a crushing kick, and slams her into the ground. The impact leaves her critically injured. Desperate to survive, Cinca begs for her life. Gangyu answers with another punch to her stomach, followed by a relentless barrage. Canis and Gato desperately call out to her. Gangyu raises his fist for the finishing blow. Cinca screams that she can't die here. Just before the final punch lands, Kingston stops Gangyu's fist. He tells Gangyu to stop, saying this victory wasn't earned by his own strength alone. According to Kingston, someone who seeks true invincibility should never need another person's help to kill an opponent. The scene cuts back to Moors. Utority confirms that her ability is truly a sacrificial ability. Moors explains that once she dies, it will automatically activate. She asks what he'll do now. Utority turns to Prof and the children and offers them his condolences in advance. Prof is stunned. Without another word, Utority thrusts his hand straight through Moors's chest. She dies instantly. Utority explains that healing her to deactivate the ability would have risked the same outcome if she died during treatment. From his perspective, killing her immediately, even if it meant sacrificing everyone affected by her ability, was the better choice. He coldly compares it to treating cancer. Sometimes healthy cells must also be destroyed to eliminate the disease. He concludes that small sacrifices are necessary for a greater good, and thanks Prof and the children for becoming those sacrifices. Moors begins dying as dark energy pours out of her body. Watching the energy, Utority remarks that it's incredibly evil and is relieved she can only use it as she dies. As he leaves, he wishes Prof and the children good luck. Then he adds that Prof might not even need luck, since his endurance is exceptionally high. After Utority walks away, Prof notices the energy taking Moors' shape. The spectral figure is bound by chains around her neck and hands, with a giant execution blade hanging behind her. She announces that it's time for everyone to die together. At that moment, chains appear around the children's necks and wrists as well, sending them into panic. Prof immediately activates his ability and tells the children not to be afraid. He reminds them that he promised to protect them. Confused, Moors asks what he's doing. Prof calmly says the children are staying alive. He's the only one who will die with her. Meanwhile, Gangyu tries to push Kingston aside with a punch. Kingston blocks it, sliding backward from the impact before telling Gangyu that he always believed he had the potential to become truly invincible. Gangyu ignores him and attacks Cinca again. Kingston steps in once more, blocking the punch and asking if Gang Yu is really going to ignore an old man standing in front of him. Furious, Gang Yu immediately turns his attack on Kingston, demanding that he move. Cannies and Gato can only watch helplessly. Gang Yu is shocked when Kingston catches his punch with one hand. Kingston says he understands exactly how Gang Yu feels, but warns that this is the worst possible time to let emotions take over. He throws a punch of his own. Gang Yu barely dodges at the last possible moment. Then he sees the aftermath. That single punch tears a hole through Dark Heaven Prison, punches through the buildings surrounding them, and even clears the sky beyond. Seeing that opening, Kingston tells Sinka that if she wants to escape, now is her only chance. Frustrated by her defeat, Sinka retreats with Cannies and Gato. Now only Kingston and Gang Yu remain. Kingston smiles and says they can finally have a proper conversation. Gang Yu charges without hesitation. Kingston welcomes the attack, saying fighting is a perfectly good way for them to communicate. Meanwhile, Prof explains to Moores that people have always said he's only good at protecting others. At first, he hated that ability. But after speaking with Rayasa, he realized society desperately needed someone like him. He decides to absorb as much of the children's damage as possible with his own power. His ability begins transferring the curse from the children onto himself. The children watch in tears. Moores can't understand why he's sacrificing everything for them. Prof answers simply, because he's a teacher. Moores angrily asks what dying alone will accomplish. Prof admits they may never truly understand each other because they grew up in completely different worlds. He says she was raised by cruel people who turned her into a killing machine. Moores tells him to stop talking. But Prof continues. He says she never had a real choice. She was controlled like a puppet and forced onto a path someone else chose for her. Moores screams at him to be quiet. Prof refuses. He says that if they're going to die together, he'll spend those final moments correcting everything she was taught. A teacher's duty is to give students a better future. Ever since he became an academy instructor, he decided he would gladly risk his own life for his students. The children beg him not to do it. Prof reassures them and tells them he hopes they all grow into kind, responsible adults, because they are the future. Those words trigger a memory inside Moores. She remembers herself as a 12-year-old girl standing beside two other children. A woman introduces herself as Taelum, their new teacher. She tells them they are the future, then immediately asks if they're willing to sacrifice themselves for her. Taelum used to recruit children from orphanages and enroll them in a school she created. She only chose children with abilities so she could manipulate them for her own plans. Welcoming the new students, she introduced herself as their teacher and declared that one day she would become the queen of the world. She told them they would become her loyal soldiers and that the school existed to train them for that purpose. Over the following years, Moores and the other children attended her classes. They were taught how to use their abilities, how to kill, and many other skills. Little by little, Taelum completely brainwashed them. Among all the students, Moores mastered her ability first. Taelum favored her and appointed her as the class monitor. The position gave Moores the authority to punish the other children on Taelum's behalf. She became Taelum's most loyal student. One day, Taelum asked Moores how she felt about being the class monitor. Moores admitted that punishing the other children always made her feel guilty and uneasy, and she didn't understand why. Taelum asked if she liked insects. Moores said she hated them. Taelum explained that people naturally look down on those they consider beneath them, just as they dislike insects. She told Moores those feelings were normal and would disappear with time. She encouraged Moores to stay focused on her duties, saying making her class monitor had been the right decision. As time passed, Moores grew used to punishing the other students, just as Taelum predicted. Later, Taelum told the class they had been at the school for years and would all become adults the following year. She also declared that she would soon become queen of the world. Her plan was steadily moving forward. Then everything changed. The era's strongest duo, Clark and Hilo, attacked the school. Clark teased Hilo for failing to defeat the target in a single attack and joked that she must have been tired from the previous night. Hilo replied that it depended on her mood. These were the same two heroes who were later defeated by Kingston. Clark and Hilo killed Taelum. Driving his attack through her chest, Clark remarked that she was much weaker than expected, despite Utority warning them to be careful. Hilo joked that maybe they had simply become too strong. Clark commented that no one expected Taelum to open a school and use children to pursue her dream. Hilo asked whether they should inspect the school. Clark didn't think it was necessary, but Hilo pointed out that Utority would make a big issue out of it if they skipped it. So they went. Arriving at the school, Clark showed the students Taelum's body and announced that the school was being shut down. The students panicked and charged at the two heroes together. Hilo casually snapped her fingers, blasting every student away. As they crashed to the ground, Clark admitted Taelum had trained them well. Hilo asked if they should take the children with them. Clark said rehabilitating them and helping them blend into society would cost enormous resources, and even then there was no guarantee they wouldn't become killers. He compared them to ticking time bombs. Hilo pointed out that none of them had actually killed anyone yet. Clark questioned whether they should wait until they did before acting. Hilo agreed, saying it was better to eliminate the problem at its source than deal with it later. She argued that the children had been completely brainwashed, lived by a different worldview, and would likely grow into villains. As the students slowly stood back up, Hilo decided they should all be executed before they could become a future threat. She reminded Clark to save his strength for later that night. Clark replied that it would depend on his mood. Clark begins executing the students. One of them asks why they're being killed when they've only been attending classes. Clark explains that they're too dangerous. They were abandoned by their parents, raised by a villain, and taught nothing except how to kill. In his eyes, that alone makes them a threat. The student begs for mercy, but Clark says her only mistake was being born into that environment. As he kills her, he hopes she'll have a better life in her next one. He continues slaughtering the rest of the students, while Hilo becomes increasingly excited by the bloodshed. After nearly wiping out the entire class, Clark prepares to kill Moores, but Hilo stops him. She says the situation has become far more interesting. A classroom filled with dead students while one survivor desperately escapes is, to her, even more exciting. Clark simply smiles. The two kiss, while Moores escapes with her life. She runs until she collapses, gasping for air before vomiting from the trauma. For a long time, she wanders alone with no home and no one to rely on. Then she hears someone calling out to her. It's Caracas, the world's strongest villain at the time, inviting her to join his revolution. Under Caracas, Moores kills countless people. Eventually, Kingston kills Caracas. After his death, Tommy captures Moores and sends her to Ruculus prison. Back in the present, Moores tells Prof that after everything she's lived through, he's now telling her that her entire life was wrong. She remembers Cinca, who once assured her that she wasn't the one who was wrong, the world was. Cinca promised that once she became queen, she would remake the world into a place where Moores could finally belong, and asked her to become her vessel. Moores asks Prof if Utority was right, that maybe she should never have been born. Prof answers that no one deserves a life like the one she was forced into. He understands the suffering she endured, but says that doesn't erase the crimes she committed or excuse her punishment. He tells her he'll stay with her, comfort her as her teacher, and accept responsibility alongside her. But before that, he has one final request. He asks her to separate them from the children so they won't have to witness their deaths. Moores screams at him to stop talking. A blade hangs above Prof's head. He calmly tells the children to look away and says it was an honor to be their teacher. The children break down in tears. Moores releases the blade. Prof accepts his fate, but the blade never falls. Instead, Moores chooses to die alone. She says she doesn't want someone like Prof following her until her final moment. She admits she already knew she was wrong. She just refused to accept it. She remembers feeling guilty every time she punished her classmates. Her friends would always reassure her, saying they were fine and that if she didn't punish them, Taelum would punish her instead. Moores recalls hating the reflection she saw in the blood of her victims. She remembers Tommy telling her that she wasn't someone else's puppet. Seeing her own reflection in Tommy's eyes made her hate herself even more. Later in prison, Officer Hung visited her cell and asked if she was doing okay. Moores admitted that seeing her reflection in a bowl of soup made her despise herself. The truth was too painful to accept, so she convinced herself that she wasn't the one who was wrong, that everything she had learned was right, and the world was the one that was broken. She lived her life believing that lie. As she watches the children safe beside Prof, she quietly accepts the truth. With her final breath, Moores says she lived a truly miserable life. Gangyu clashes with Kingston, but Kingston catches his punch with one hand. He tells Gangyu that his anger comes from failing to kill Hwang in prison and letting Cinca escape. If he were truly strong enough, neither of those things would have happened. Gangyu lashes out again, but Kingston says anger won't change reality. Unless Gangyu becomes stronger, he'll never defeat either of them. He argues that the real problem isn't his enemies, it's his own weakness. If Gangyu had been stronger than Kingston, he could have ignored him and killed Cinca. Deep down, Kingston says, Gangyu already knows this but refuses to accept it. Kingston explains that acknowledging his weakness is difficult, but it's the only way to move forward and achieve his goal. He asks Gangyu again why he's so angry. Gangyu remembers his fallen friends, Mago's students, and his brother. The memories only fuel his rage, and he attacks again. Kingston says those emotions are exactly what's clouding his judgment. He counters with a punch that slams Gangyu into the ground. Lying defeated, Gangyu remembers his brother once more. Kingston asks if he's finally calmed down. Gangyu looks at him and asks what he should do. Kingston extends his hand, saying Gangyu already knows the answer. Gangyu accepts it with a handshake. Meanwhile, Sinka opens portals to recall the other villains. Ho is surprised to be called back so suddenly, while Ju Young says they simply follow orders. He also notes that things are far from over, as the hero Mianji, a special type user, has arrived. Elsewhere, Lippis is still fighting a Swede. A portal opens behind him, and Sinka orders him to return immediately. A Swede refuses, saying his mission isn't finished. Sinka angrily threatens to kill him if he doesn't come back, forcing the mission to end. With that, the Alpha World Invitation incident comes to a close. After agreeing to train Gangyu, Kingston requests a meeting with the World Security Council. Standing before the council, he recognizes several familiar faces. Gara and Boda greet him, while Kingston jokes that they've become quite ambitious. Gara replies that even they aren't as ambitious as Kingston. President Bezet asks why he requested the meeting. Kingston says he didn't come to negotiate. He simply came to announce that Gangyu is now his student and warns the government not to interfere. After delivering his message, he leaves. The council immediately votes on Kingston's proposal. Crumb, Boda, Gara, and Einheit oppose it. Utority is the only member who supports it, while El Jito remains neutral. Utority argues that they're rejecting valuable help despite the crisis. Crumb reminds him that Kingston is still a criminal. If he's dangerous enough to deserve execution, there's no reason to trust him now. Utority insists the situation has changed. Bezet is left overwhelmed, wondering if he became president at the worst possible time. Meanwhile, Sinka is also uncertain about her next move. She realizes Kingston is still unbelievably powerful despite his age, and wonders how strong he must have been in his prime. She fears he could ruin her entire plan. Just then, A Chuang approaches and reminds her that she promised to bathe with him as part of helping him grow strong enough to defeat Gangyu. Sinka confirms it's necessary for the process. Privately, she reassures herself that her plan isn't finished. She still has A Chuang, along with Hiro, Terapier, and Ahura, her remaining trump cards. Believing time is on her side, she hugs A Chuang, who complains that he can't breathe. Later, the Hero Association gathers to choose the third generation of the Equality Team. Utority and his supporters stand on one side, while the remaining heroes, including Mianji, stand on the other. As the temporary Hero Association leader, Lippis announces the meeting and begins the selection process for Equality's third generation. Lippis explains the selection process for the new Equality members. First, the Hero Association chairman chooses 5 candidates. The government then investigates each candidate. After the investigation, the heroes vote. If 2/3 approve, the candidates officially become Equality members. As the temporary chairman, Lippis prepares to select the candidates. Before she can begin, Utority interrupts. He argues that, as only a temporary chairman, she has no authority to make such an important decision. Lippis demands to know why he's even there, reminding him that he lost his qualifications as a hero. Utority replies that he's attending as the leader of the World Party to observe the meeting. Lippis tells him to stay quiet since observers have no authority over Hero Association matters. Utority responds that he still refuses to recognize her as chairman. Lippis says his approval doesn't matter. Utority warns that if a temporary chairman selects the equality candidates, his party will refuse to recognize the decision. Lippis is shocked. Utority argues that choosing equality members will shape the future, so it shouldn't be left to someone serving only temporarily. Lippis insists they can't afford to wait, because the crisis requires new members immediately. Utority mocks her, saying it's ironic to hear her talk about solving problems after what happened in Portugal. He accuses her of playing games with villains instead of eliminating them. Lippis fires back that he only values results after people die, while she risked everything to protect civilians. She reminds him that she heard he was willing to sacrifice children, and says he hasn't changed at all. Utority shouts that he has no reason to change. It's the heroes who need to. He claims his actions in Portugal were the correct decision and points out that no one ultimately died. According to him, the real sacrifice is society itself. Because the heroes protect criminals with taxpayer money, give them shelter, and try to rehabilitate people who will never change. He calls criminals beyond redemption and points out that the escaped prisoners are already working under Sinka and planning more attacks. He criticizes Lippis for trying to rebuild the Hero Association with Mago's students and predicts she'll continue insisting that heroes should never kill. He claims no one truly wants her as Hero Association chairman. Lippis asks if he'll follow the official procedures if she's properly elected. Utority agrees. Lippis proposes holding a vote for the chairman. Utority initially suggests a public election. Lippis refuses, saying there's no time. Instead, she proposes a vote among the heroes, with the majority deciding the result. Utority rejects that idea, arguing that most current heroes were chosen by Rayasa and naturally support her ideology, making the vote biased. Lippis then proposes using the same rule as the equality member selection. a two-thirds majority of heroes. Utority accepts. The vote is held. Lippis fails to secure the required two-thirds majority and is rejected. Utority remarks that she didn't receive the support she expected and says it's time to choose a new chairman. Although most heroes had originally been selected by Rayasa, Lippis still expected their support. However, there was another reason for the outcome. After the Ruthless prison incident, Utority personally met with many heroes and spent his time persuading them. Not everyone agreed with him, but he successfully won over several heroes to his side. Even those who still disagreed believed the Hero Association urgently needed a permanent chairman. Unlike Rayasa, whose long list of achievements earned widespread trust, Lippis had no comparable record to unite the heroes. Many believed Gangyu, a former Equality member, should have inherited Rayasa's position. Instead, Gangyu chose to follow his own path, leaving the heroes divided. Utority mocks Lippis, saying even her allies don't fully trust her leadership. Lippis again suggests moving forward with selecting candidates and holding a hero vote. Utority refuses. He reminds her that the third Hero Association chairman, someone she deeply respected, created a policy requiring the chairman to be chosen through a public election. That same policy also allows the government to shorten the election period during emergencies. He adds that anyone can run for chairman, whether they're a Hero Association member or not. Since Rayasa created those rules herself, Utority insists they must follow them. He tells Lippis that, as temporary chairman, it's her responsibility to ask the government to begin the election process immediately. With that, Utority officially steps down as leader of the World Party to run for Hero Association chairman. The stage is now set for the election between Utority and Lippis to decide the association's next leader. Bezit recalls his private meeting with Kingston. Kingston remarks that Bezit is surprisingly brave for meeting him alone. Bezit says he's heard a lot about him from Gara and Boda, and believes Kingston has no intention of harming him. Kingston jokes that those two talk too much. He mentions hearing that Bezit has no abilities and admits it's impressive that he became president without one. Bezit decides to ask directly about Kingston's true goal. Instead of answering, Kingston asks what Bezit knows about how abilities evolve. Bezit explains that summoning-type users grow stronger through imagination, while special and physical types become significantly stronger after puberty. Kingston says that's only partly true. While special and physical users do gain power as they mature, physical types can continue breaking their limits through relentless training. He then asks Bezit if he's ever wondered what the absolute peak of human strength would look like. Bezit realizes that someone at that level would be impossible for any country to control. Kingston says Gangyu would be a better person to answer that question. His own goal is simple. He just wants to see how strong a human can truly become. Bezit remembers an earlier conversation with Rayasa. He once questioned why she wanted to add another member to Equality, even though she always strictly followed rules and regulations. Rayasa replied that Gangyu was the one exception worth making. Bezit wondered whether someone that powerful could truly be trusted. Rayasa answered without hesitation that she trusted Gangyu completely as a teammate. Remembering those words, Bezit decides that he also trusts Gangyu. Kingston says that's all the answer he needs. Whether Bezit trusts him or not won't change anything. Feeling relieved that at least one issue has been settled, Bezit is interrupted by a knock on his door. His secretary informs him that the Hero Association is preparing to elect a new chairman, and that Utority has officially announced his candidacy. The news immediately gives Bezit another problem to worry about. Bezit ultimately accepts Kingston's proposal. Only the highest-ranking government officials are informed, making it a top-secret operation. Meanwhile, the government announces the election schedule for the new Hero Association chairman. Candidates have 3 days to register, followed by 3 public debates over the next 2 weeks. The chairman will then be chosen through a public vote. The position carries a maximum 4-year term, although it will also end once the Ruculus prison crisis is resolved. Although anyone is technically allowed to run, candidates must first receive support from heroes in their region to avoid an overwhelming number of registrations. Both Utority and Lippis officially register as candidates. The Hero Association then holds its first election meeting. Mute welcomes everyone and explains that each candidate will have an opportunity to present their platform. Utority speaks first. Using the escaped criminals as his example, he argues that today's chaos is the direct result of the current ideology. He asks whether heroes intend to forgive those criminals, imprison them again, or eventually release them once more, insisting they already know the right answer. Lippis follows. She recalls witnessing countless innocent people die under Utority's leadership, arguing that heroes who kill on that scale become no different from villains. She acknowledges that Sinka's plan threatens all of humanity, but says Utority follows the same dangerous mindset. According to Lippis, Both Sinka and Utority decide whose lives matter more and sacrifice the minority for the majority. She reminds everyone that every human life has equal value and urges them not to forget Reyasa's ideals. As the campaign continues, both candidates focus on securing support from regional heroes while trying to weaken each other's base. Heroes backing Utority include Anganasakti from North America and Ajit Ledio from India. Supporting Lipis are Pocket from Oceania, Mayanjai from China, Carfigure from the Middle East, Hassan from South America, and Alterigo from Africa. After locking in their support, both sides spend the following days publicly debating and attacking each other's positions. Eventually, the final day of registration arrives. Mute announces that registration has officially closed and prepares to begin the third debate. Then she receives unexpected news. A new candidate has registered at the last moment. A voice introduces himself to the Hero Association. His name is Medius, and he's a high school student. Both Lipis and Utority are left stunned as they wonder who this unexpected third candidate is. Medius officially registers as a chairman candidate. Utority immediately objects, arguing that this isn't a student council election and only candidates supported by regional heroes can run. Middle Eastern hero Carfigure then reveals that he is sponsoring Medius. Both Utority and Lipis are shocked. Lipis reminds Carfigure that he was supporting her. Carfigure says he changed his mind and now fully supports Medius. The final list of candidates becomes Candidate number 1, Lipis candidate number 2, Utority candidate number 3, Medius. All three officially enter the race for Hero Association chairman. After the meeting, Utority notices that the media is focused entirely on Medius. His secretary explains that she's currently the hottest topic. Although the public is criticizing both Carfigure and Medius, believing a middle school student has no place in the election. Utority asks whether they've investigated her. The secretary reports that Medius appears to be an ordinary female student. When Utority asks if she has an ability, the investigation still has no answer. Meanwhile, Lipis confronts Carfigure. She asks why he betrayed her and whether he personally knew Medius. Carfigure says they had never met before that day. He explains that when he returned to his office, he found Medius sitting in his chair. At first he suspected she was a villain, but after talking with her for what felt like hundreds of conversations, he became completely convinced that she should become chairman. Lipis suspects Medius used an ability to manipulate him. She asks permission to examine him. After checking with her own magic, she confirms he hasn't been hypnotized or manipulated. Confused, she asks how he could make such an important decision based purely on instinct. Carfigure insists it isn't instinct. He simply believes Medius is the right person to lead the Hero Association and poses no threat to humanity. Although both Lipis and Utority have many unanswered questions about Medius, they conclude that her candidacy is unlikely to affect the election and continue focusing on each other. Eventually, the first debate begins. Mute welcomes everyone and explains the rules. Each candidate receives 10 minutes. Speaking order follows candidate numbers. During those 10 minutes, candidates may present their platform and question their opponents. Time spent listening to answers is deducted from the questioner's own time. Each opponent is also allowed 2 one-minute objections during another candidate's speech. Mute introduces the candidates. Candidate number 1, Lipis. Candidate number 2, Utority. Candidate number 3, Medius. Lipis speaks first. She explains that after abilities appeared, countless wars broke out before the world government was formed. Heroes and villains gradually split into separate groups, pushing society toward collapse. Thanks to Reyasa and many others, society was eventually rebuilt on a stable foundation. She warns that when Utority previously led the Hero Association, heroes acted without restraint, and many innocent civilians died alongside villains. If he becomes chairman again, history will repeat itself, and society will collapse once more. Utority immediately uses his first 1-minute objection. He argues that society is already collapsing. He says people wrongly label him a villain, even though he sacrifices his own conscience to protect society. According to him, Lipis and others are sacrificing society to protect criminals. He insists that sacrifices are unavoidable, and if sacrifices must be made, criminals should be eliminated completely to prevent future disasters. Lipis tries to stop him. Utority continues speaking by secretly using his time acceleration ability. Lipis notices that his 1-minute objection is lasting far longer than it should. She accuses him of manipulating time. Mute immediately silences Lipis with her ability until Utority's objection officially ends. She also warns Utority not to use his ability during the debate again. She reminds everyone that how candidates conduct themselves is just as important as what they say. For the rest of the debate, Lipis and Utority spend most of their time attacking each other's credibility. By the end, Utority manages to gain the upper hand. He questions how someone unwilling to kill even a villain could possibly solve the current crisis. He also asks whether Lippis is stronger than Rayasa. Privately, he believes Lippis is the perfect opponent because the public already sees her as Rayasa's inexperienced student. Many also view her as weak, making her easier to control throughout the debate. Next, Medius takes the stage. She praises Utority for building the Hero Association into a major organization through passion and hard work. She also praises Lippis for strengthening it further by carrying on Rayasa's ideals. Instead of choosing one side, Medius says she wants to combine the strengths of both approaches to solve the crisis. Utority interrupts, mocking her as a child and telling her to go back to school. Mute reminds him that he has already used his allotted time and cannot interrupt further. Medius calmly gives Utority part of her own speaking time so they can continue talking. Utority asks what she wants. Medius reveals that she's an ability user. Since Rayasa established the Ability Academy after Utority's time as chairman, she explains that he wouldn't know anything about her ability. Utority asks what her ability is. Medius refuses to reveal it. Utority argues that the Hero Association chairman must possess a powerful ability because no hero would follow a weak leader. Medius responds with a challenge. Instead of explaining her ability, she proposes settling the question through a fight and letting everyone see how strong she really is. Her unexpected challenge leaves Utority stunned. The public is stunned. No one expected a young girl to openly challenge Utority to a fight. Utority asks if she's serious. Medius proposes an ability-based MMA match. Utority immediately begins analyzing the situation. No matter what he does, he loses. If he accepts, the public will see him fighting a child after repeatedly calling her a kid. As a major political figure, lowering himself to that level would damage his image. Even if he wins, the victory means nothing. If he loses, his political career could be over. But rejecting the challenge isn't safe either. People would assume he's afraid to fight. His tough image would take a serious hit. Using his time acceleration ability, Utority rapidly thinks through countless strategies. Before making a move, he realizes he first needs to know Medius' ability. Meanwhile, Kingston continues training Gangyu. He comments that lately everything feels like it's repeating itself. Gangyu doesn't understand what he means. Kingston explains that it feels as if the same events keep happening over and over. Gangyu says he's been doing the same training this whole time, so he can't tell the difference. Kingston wonders if it's simply because he's getting old, but something still feels unusual. In reality, Medius' ability is causing that strange feeling. Back at the debate, Medius asks why Utority still hasn't answered. Utority dismisses her as an emotional child, saying debates aren't the place for fights. Privately, he's desperately searching for a way out. Medius reminds him that he was the one who argued the Hero Association chairman must be strong. She also points out that he questioned Lippis because she was weaker than Rayasa. When Utority was chairman, heroes were ranked through combat. So she suggests settling their strength the same way. If this isn't the right place, they can fight after the debate. Utority realizes he's trapped. He admits she has a point and starts responding, but Mute suddenly silences him. She explains that Medius no longer wishes to give him any of her remaining speaking time. Unable to respond, Utority grows even more suspicious. He secretly considers attacking Medius at maximum speed before anyone notices. Just as he prepares to move, Medius looks directly at him. It feels as though she already knows exactly what he's about to do. Utority hesitates and abandons the attack. With only a few minutes remaining, Medius presents her vision. She compares society to a rope tangled into an impossible knot after countless wars. According to her, Utority solved the problem by cutting the rope into 2 pieces, then kept cutting it into even smaller pieces. Rayasa tried the opposite approach by tying the broken pieces back together. However, some of those pieces were already rotten, which eventually created today's crisis. Medius says neither extreme is the answer. Instead of cutting society apart or blindly putting everything back together, she wants to carefully remove only the rotten sections while preserving the rope itself. She believes balance, not extremism, is the solution. If elected Hero Association chairman, she will request that the government grant qualified heroes the authority to execute dangerous villains on sight. However, only carefully vetted heroes would receive that power. She promises that every execution decision would be made cautiously and individually. As for Alpha World's criminals, she says they will all be executed without exception. With that, the first round of debates comes to an end. After the first debate, public opinion shifts dramatically. According to the latest poll, Lippis, 8%, Utority, 35%, Medius, 57%. The debate also changes the hero's support. Several heroes who originally backed Lippis switched to Medius, including Manhwa, China, Hassan, South America. Seeing her support collapse, Lippis holds a press conference. She says that after carefully listening to Medius' arguments, she couldn't properly respond because she spent too much time debating Utority. Lippis argues that Medius is still just a high school student with no real experience. According to her, someone that inexperienced shouldn't be deciding who lives and who dies. She warns that Medius is just as dangerous as Utority. Later, Lippis meets with the heroes who abandoned her. Carfigure asks why they were called. Lippis questions how they could support a high school student. Hassan simply says he trusts his instincts above everything else. Lippis then turns to Myanji, admitting she never expected her to switch sides. She says Yuge would have been disappointed. Myanji remembers her teacher, Yuge. He once taught her that the world is complicated. Things considered normal in one era can become unforgivable in another. Yuge admits he killed many people because, at that time, he believed it was the right thing to do. Meeting Rayasa changed his perspective, but even then, he never claimed to have the perfect answer. Instead, he told Myanji that no one has all the answers, and all anyone can do is give their best. Remembering those words, Myanji says she believes Medius is currently the most qualified person to lead the Hero Association. Carfigure tells Lippis they won't be changing their decision. He also hopes they can avoid meetings like this during the election. Lippis leaves disappointed. After the first debate, nearly all media attention shifts to Medius. Reporters investigate her school, her family, and the challenge she issued to Utority. The biggest mystery becomes one question: what is Medius' ability? Utority is trying to answer the same question. He repeatedly watches footage of the debate. After analyzing it over and over, he believes he has finally figured it out. Meanwhile, at Sinka's hideout, Canis mentions that events have been feeling strangely repetitive. Gato agrees. Sinka admits she's been experiencing the same feeling. In reality, all of this is happening because of Medius' ability. Elsewhere, Wang quietly sits lost in thought. At the same time, Pryatua has reverted into his child form. Since he lives his entire life within a single week that endlessly repeats, he's become bored and impatient. He complains that he wants to leave the hideout. Natura reminds him that Sinka ordered everyone to stay hidden until further notice. Vidi quietly writes in his diary, saying Medius' ability has given him endless inspiration. Pryatua convinces Natura to sneak out to a nearby village. Natura hesitates, worried Sinka will get angry. Pryatua insists it won't matter as long as they aren't caught. Eventually, Natura agrees. He asks the others to join them. Pekanyu refuses, saying she's too scared. Vidi also declines, joking that characters who ignore orders are usually the first to die. Natura asks a Swede. Remembering Sinka's warning, a Swede claims he isn't feeling well and stays behind. Natura then uses his nature-based ability to travel with Pryatua to a nearby village. While admiring the surrounding environment, Pryatua praises Natura's useful ability. But the moment they arrive, they freeze. Standing before them are several heroes, Myanji, Hassan, Carfigure, and with them, Medius. Neither Pryatua nor Natura recognizes them. Meanwhile, Utority tells his secretary to arrange a press conference. He announces that he's accepting Medius' challenge. His secretary thinks he's joking. Utority says he's completely serious. He believes it's now the only way he can win the election. He explains that something has felt wrong ever since the debate. It was as if the same debate had happened over and over again. He realizes that such an outcome should have been impossible. His secretary asks what he's trying to say. As heroes confront the villains and Medius watches from behind them, Utority finally reveals his conclusion. Medius' ability is the power to rewind time. Utority's secretary is shocked. She asks if Medius can really rewind time. Utority says yes. The longer the debate lasted, the more it favored Medius. According to him, she kept rewinding time until she created the outcome she wanted. The secretary says that would make Medius impossible to defeat. Utority disagrees. He says she has one critical weakness. He shows the secretary several images of Medius and asks if she notices anything different. The secretary realizes Medius' hair has become longer. Utority confirms that's the clue. Although Medius can rewind time, she cannot rewind her own body. If she's injured, rewinding time won't heal her. She simply returns to the past carrying the same injuries. That means every rewind slowly wears her down. Because of that weakness, Utority believes he can defeat her if he accepts the challenge. The secretary wonders if someone who controls time must also be incredibly powerful physically. Utority reminds her that he's also a time-based ability user. He's been manipulating time long before Medius ever appeared. He's confident he'll win. He concludes that every time user shares the same fate, they must constantly risk their own lives to use their abilities. Meanwhile, Natura battles the heroes. He controls giant plants to attack Carfigure. Carfigure cuts every vine apart with his swords. He says plant manipulation is too beautiful an ability to belong to a criminal. Admiring the graceful curves of the plants, he remarks that his swords have beautiful curves as well. He then wounds Natura. Hassan follows up with a massive hammer strike aimed at Natura's head. If the hammer connects, Natura's ability will be sealed for 24 hours. Natura narrowly dodges. Disappointed, Hassan reveals why he's known as the head hunter. His hammer seals an opponent's ability after striking their head. He shouts for Manhwa to remove Natura's hood because he can't clearly see his target. Manhwa activates her ability. Its effects change depending on the color of her mask. With her mask currently blue, she joins the attack. While holding off the heroes, Natura asks Pryatua how much longer he has to wait. Pryatua says he's only moments away from reaching adulthood again. As the battle continues, Pryatua looks up at the moon. He counts down the final seconds before his body rapidly matures. Returning to his prime, he smiles and says it finally feels good to be young again. He steps forward confidently. Now, he declares, time is finally on their side. Hearing that, Medius suddenly bursts into laughter. Confused, Natura and Pryatua ask what's so funny. Medius tells them they've completely misunderstood time. Time isn't on their side. It's on hers. She activates her ability and rewinds time. Everyone is sent back to an earlier moment. This time, Carfigure attacks immediately. Before Natura and Pryatua can react, Hassan lands clean blows to both of their heads, sealing their abilities. Medius calmly says, "As long as I'm alive, time will always be on our side." Utority prepares for his press conference when his secretary stops him. She says a new video has just been uploaded. Utority watches it. A live TV program is interrupted as Medius appears on screen. She announces that two B3 class criminals, Pryatua and Natura, have been captured. Both are currently being held under the supervision of 3 regional hero representatives. Medius says she wanted to execute them on the spot, but since she's still a civilian, she must hand them over to the government. She adds that their fate will depend on who becomes the next Hero Association chairman. Addressing Utority's challenge, she explains she's currently busy dealing with the captured villains. Once that's finished, she'll schedule their fight. She says the priority should be capturing villains, not fighting each other. With that, the broadcast ends. Seeing the public response, Utority realizes he has no choice but to postpone the fight. His secretary then tells him Medius wants to speak with him directly. The two hold a private conversation. Utority calls her the Time Rewind Girl. Medius realizes he has figured out her ability. Utority says he now knows another time-based ability user exists besides himself. Medius openly confirms it. She explains that although she can rewind time, she cannot rewind herself. Utority says her power must have a limit. He estimates she can only rewind about 1 week, or at most 10 days. Otherwise, she would have simply rewound time to prevent the Ruculus prison escape. Medius admits he's correct. She explains that after Cinca's broadcast, the government concealed too much information from the public. Because she didn't receive crucial information in time, she couldn't rewind far enough to stop those events. She confirms that her limit is roughly 1 week. That means she always has access to information about events that, for everyone else, haven't happened yet. Utority realizes this also means she already knows the election results. He asks why she's revealing all of this when she's already in a winning position. Medius says they've debated countless times across repeated timelines. Since they're both time users, she's always wanted to talk honestly with someone who could truly understand her ability. Utority rejects the idea. He says she's trying to create a bond between them, but he has no interest in that. Medius simply says that's unfortunate and tells him they'll meet again during the next debate. Before ending the call, Utority asks one final question. Why did she choose a capybara as her campaign symbol? He originally assumed it meant she was a physical-type ability user. Medius laughs and says she picked it for one simple reason. It looked cute. Following Medius' recent achievements, another major shift occurs. Utority loses one of his supporters as Ajit Letio, the hero representing India, joins Medius' campaign. At the same time, Alter Ego, the African hero who originally supported Lippis, also switches to Medius. With 3 active candidates, the planned second debate is cancelled. Meanwhile, Cinca is clearly unhappy watching Medius' growing popularity. Elsewhere, Gang Yu continues quietly training under Kingston. At the same time, both Lippis and Utority focus entirely on preparing for the election. As time passes, the day of the final debate arrives. Mute welcomes everyone and announces that this will be the last debate before the election. Each candidate receives 10 minutes to speak. This time, each candidate may raise 3 objections. The debate will proceed in reverse order. The candidates are Candidate number 1, Lippis candidate number 2, Utority candidate number 3. Medius, before the debate even begins, Mute is visibly shocked. The audience is equally stunned. In only a short amount of real time, Medius has noticeably changed. She appears older, her hair has grown much longer, and she barely resembles the girl from the first debate. The reason is simple. Over the past several days, Medius has rewound time thousands of times. Medius steps onto the stage for the final debate. Mute looks at her in disbelief. Are you really Medius? Medius smiles and replies, yes, shall we begin? the final debate officially begins. Medius immediately reveals the secret she has been hiding. She announces that she is a time-type ability user. Her power allows her to rewind the world's time, but unlike everyone else, she herself is never rewound. She points to her own appearance as proof. Because of that, she's grown older while everyone else remained the same. Before today's debate even started, she had already rewound time countless times. As a result, she now possesses information from numerous different timelines. She already knows the locations of their enemies and many of the events that will happen in the future. If she becomes Hero Association chairman, her first objective will be launching a full-scale assault on Alpha World. She declares that she will devote every moment of her life to creating a world where civilians can finally live in peace. No matter how many times she has to repeat time, she'll complete the mission as safely as possible. With that, her speech ends. Next, it's Utority's turn. Instead of continuing his campaign, he shocks everyone. He announces that he is officially withdrawing his candidacy. Not only that, he publicly declares his support for Medius. The entire audience is stunned. Lippis can't believe what she just heard. Medius recalls the private conversation they had before the debate. She had asked Utority why he wanted to meet. Utority replied, "Stop pretending. Haven't you already seen this future? You already know what I'm going to say." Since their previous meeting, she must have rewound time countless times. Because of that, he jokes that he feels like he's drunk millions of cups of coffee. He asks what she's been doing during all those repeated timelines. Medius simply replies, "I'll tell you during the debate." Utority then explains his decision. After thinking everything through, he has concluded that Medius is the best person to solve the current crisis. That's why he's withdrawing and supporting her instead. If he supports her, she's guaranteed to win. After all, according to him, the rabbit has no chance of winning. Medius realizes he wants something in return. Utority admits that's true. Since the chairman's term will end once the current crisis is resolved, he wants Medius to promise that she won't run in the next election. Medius immediately agrees. That answer makes Utority suspicious. He says she's hiding something. Otherwise, she wouldn't have accepted his conditions so easily. Medius simply answers that if someone is genuinely trying to help her, there's no reason to refuse. As someone with far more experience using time abilities, Utority gives her one piece of advice. Never make the mistake of believing that time is on your side. Time is fair to everyone. Medius quietly promises she'll remember those words. Back in the debate, Lippis angrily asks why Utority waited until the middle of the debate to announce his withdrawal. He casually replies that he'll do whatever he wants. Besides, it's still technically his speaking time. Lippis argues that he's already withdrawn from the election. Utority points out that the official withdrawal process hasn't finished yet. Then he turns to the host. "Can you mute the rabbit? It's my turn to speak, but I can't because she keeps interrupting me." Lippis immediately objects. She reminds everyone that she still has objections remaining and is simply using her allotted time. Utority sighs. Fine, I understand. Stop complaining. I'll just give you all of my remaining time." He then tells the host to transfer every remaining second of his speaking time to Lippis and mute him completely. He even jokes that he doesn't want to hear her endless talking anymore. Lippis calls him a greedy old man and tells him to leave if that's all he's going to do. Utority laughs. "If I were greedy, I wouldn't have withdrawn from the election. I already gave you my time." Medius then says she's already finished everything she wanted to say. She asks whether she can leave early so she can spend her time gathering more information about their enemies instead of sitting through the rest of the debate. Lippis can only shout in frustration. "My speaking time isn't even over yet." Mute watches the entire scene in complete disbelief. She never imagined the final debate would turn out like this. Eventually, the debate concludes. The results are announced. Medius becomes the 4th Hero Association chairman. Soon afterward, the world government summons Medius for a meeting. She shares all the information she's gathered from the future, including events that haven't happened yet. In return, the government promises to fully support her. They also brief her on Gangyu Seo's current situation. After exchanging information, Medius prepares to leave. Before she walks away, El Jito stops her. He tells her that because of her ability, she's probably heard the same conversations thousands of times. Although he's saying these words for the first time, she has probably heard them many times already. He gives her one final piece of advice. "Medius, in this world, remaining neutral is far more difficult than people think. I hope you remember that." After meeting with the government, Medius gathers the heroes and asks everyone to cooperate with her new policies. Most of them agree. However, convincing Lippis proves much more difficult. Holding her head, Medius sighs. "I've had this exact conversation with you countless times already." Lippis calmly replies, "But this is the first time I've had it." Medius admits she no longer knows how many times Lippis has said those exact words. She says someone as strong as Lippis has probably already realized that events keep repeating. Lippis asks, "So, how are you planning to convince me this time?" Medius smiles. I'm not. I respect your opinion. I need your help. I just hope you'll trust our policies and participate in this mission. Lippis answers that she would have joined the mission even if Medius had never asked. The scene shifts to Hero Association headquarters. Utority congratulates Medius on becoming the 4th Hero Association chairman. Looking at her expression, he guesses she still couldn't convince the rabbit. He mocks Lippis as a weak woman who can't even bring herself to kill a villain. Medius disagrees. She believes Lippis simply has incredibly strong convictions. Utority tells her to hurry and finish the remaining preparations. He's looking forward to hearing her first official speech. If she needs any advice, she's free to ask him. Finally, Medius delivers her first speech as chairman. She explains that before beginning their mission, they must first appoint the 3rd generation equality members. She announces her selections one by one. Carfigure Myanji alter ego Lippis Utority, then she reveals one final surprise. Utority will serve as the leader of equality. The entire room falls silent. Even Utority himself is completely shocked. Medius' choice of the new equality members leaves every hero shocked. After the speech, Medius asks Utority to stay behind because she needs his advice. Utority can't believe she appointed him as equality's leader. He asks what she's hiding. Medius says she's hiding nothing and would have answered if he had simply asked. Utority refuses the offer, saying he has no intention of joining equality or working alongside people he hates. Medius explains that's exactly why she made him the leader. When Utority asks why anyone would follow him, Medius reveals her real reason. If he leads equality, his chances of winning the next Hero Association election will increase significantly. Utority dismisses the idea, saying he can win the next election without joining equality, and that Lippis isn't a threat. Medius reminds him that Lippis will participate in the mission. If she accomplishes something major, she could easily defeat him in the next election. Utority still doesn't believe it. Then Medius says something unexpected. She might run in the next election herself. That immediately silences Utority. Medius offers him a deal. If he helps her complete this mission, she'll use her time rewind ability to help him win the next election. She also explains that completing this mission as chairman will give her more influence, making it even easier to support him later. After thinking it over, Utority realizes she hasn't rewound time to change this outcome, meaning he likely accepts the offer in every timeline. He agrees to help, but reminds her not to forget her promise. Medius admits the more she talks to him, the more surprised she becomes. Every hero asks whether they'll survive the mission. Utority never asks that. He replies that the only future he sees is one where he's Hero Association chairman. So instead of wasting time, they should finish planning the mission. Later, Medius explains how she selected the new equality members and receives the other heroes' approval. The 3rd generation of equality is officially formed. She names their Operation Obliteration. Meanwhile, Sinka sends invitations across the world to recruit more ability users. However, Medius already knows who will accept the invitations. She sends heroes to intercept them before they can join, preventing most recruits from reaching Sinka. As a result, only a handful of ability users make it to her side. Canis is surprised by how few arrived. One recruit, Tira, asks why they're classified as 3rd floor rank. The group includes Tira, Soror, Nudius, Achilla, and Baruz. Achilla argues they deserve a higher rank. Baruz asks about Hwang. Sinka replies that anyone who performs well in the upcoming war will receive a promotion, and exceptional achievements will earn special rewards. As for Hwang, he's still training. Later that night, countless fireballs suddenly appear above Sinka's hideout, turning the entire sky red. The attack comes from Myanji using her red mask. Canis immediately warns Sinka. Sinka prepares to teleport the fireballs away, but before she can act, Carfigure, riding on Lippis Carrot, slices the fireballs apart with his swords. The explosions heavily damage the hideout. Watching the attack, Utority comments that summoning meteors on top of the fireballs would have caused even more destruction. Lippis refuses, saying that would have injured their own heroes. Utority argues that if their heroes can't survive that much, they shouldn't be on the battlefield. Lippis fires back that Utority shouldn't be there either. Utority reminds everyone that he's the team's leader. Before the argument escalates, Alter Ego tells them to stop wasting time and head to the locations Medius identified. Utority agrees. He asks if everyone is ready. Then he declares that it's finally time to wipe out the cancer cells. Alongside him, the rest of the heroes begin Operation Obliteration. Medius forms an advisory committee to lead the mission. Mute, special type, is in charge of security. She can create a silent space where no sound can pass. Prof, special type, serves as Medius' personal bodyguard. Ethiopia, special type, a genius mechanical engineer, handles communications. During their meeting, the committee concludes they can't make their next move until they know Sinka's destination. Mute questions how Sinka managed to launch an EMP attack on Ruculus prison. Ethiopia suspects they may have an insider inside the prison. Medius says they'll investigate that after defeating Sinka. Right now, the mission comes first. To prepare this operation, Medius sacrifices 2 years of her own life, spending that time doing nothing except thinking, sleeping, and eating while repeatedly rewinding time. Her main goal is to reduce hero casualties as much as possible. Whenever a dangerous future appears, she rewinds time and tries again. Holding her head, Medius wishes she could rewind herself while keeping all of her memories. She continues repeating timelines until she reaches the future she wants. Utority notes that she's rewound time countless times, but reminds her that time is fair to everyone. No matter how many times she rewinds, the perfect future will never exist. Using everything she learned, Medius assigns each hero to an opponent they're best suited to defeat. Lippis is matched against Censura, a special type villain with the power of censorship. Censura believes everyone should have a healthy mindset. Anyone she considers vulgar can be trapped inside one of her photographs. The moment she sees Lippis, she calls her vulgar. Lippis immediately wonders why Medius gave her such a terrible matchup. She covers herself with extra clothing, but Censura still says it isn't enough. When Lippis asks what's wrong now, Censura answers, "Your standards." Since Censura's standards constantly change depending on the situation, she declares that Lippis' appearance is inappropriate no matter what she wears. Lippis attacks, insisting she dresses that way because she likes rabbits, and there's nothing wrong with that. She defeats Censura and captures her alive. Afterward, Lippis complains to Medius, saying she promised this matchup would give her the advantage. Medius explains that Lippis wanted to avoid killing villains, so she deliberately assigned her opponents who don't normally kill people. Even if Lippis had lost, Censura wouldn't have killed her. There's another reason as well. Censura had trapped many innocent people inside her photographs. If she were killed, those victims might have died too. That's why Medius specifically sent Lippis. Meanwhile, Carfigure faces Soror. Soror says she's always wanted to meet one of the legendary sword gods. She recalls asking sword god Tatsujin to teach her, but he refused, saying he hadn't yet reached the level he sought himself. As she releases her ability, Soror asks what a sword truly means. She's killed countless people with hers but still hasn't found the answer. She wonders if killing even more people will finally reveal it. Carfigure admits he once believed the same thing. He cut down countless people, including those begging for mercy, while searching for that answer. But after meeting Rayasa, he found the realization where he least expected it. The two clash. Carfigure cuts Soror down in a single strike and tells her that a sword isn't a tool to satisfy yourself, it's a tool used for the sake of others. Elsewhere, Utority confronts Tira. Tira mocks Utority for being old, but praises his fighting spirit. He says he would have preferred fighting Carfigure, but Utority will do. Utority coldly replies that he hates people who talk like they're already important. The talking is over. I'm ending you right now. Utority throws the first punch at Tira. Tira tries to counter, but Utority lands another heavy blow first. Holding his stomach, Tira admits the punch was incredibly powerful. He assumes Utority accelerated time to increase its force. Tira transforms and says cutting Utority apart will be fun. Utority laughs, saying he hasn't even used his time ability yet. He kicks Tira across the face, making him spit blood. Even after transforming, Tira still couldn't dodge a normal attack. Utority explains that even physical-type users have different tiers of strength. Before Tira can react, Utority boosts his speed 4 times and crushes his head. He says he was never going to give Tira a chance to attack. With that, the Equality members easily defeat the third-floor villains. Meanwhile, Lippis has captured Censura. Utority arrives and immediately criticizes her for keeping the villain alive. He tells Lippis to remove her barrier so he can execute Censura himself. Lippis refuses. Utority threatens to destroy the barrier instead. Before they clash, Medius contacts them through their communicator. She orders Utority to stand down. Censura still has civilians trapped inside her photographs. They'll imprison her first and execute her only after rescuing everyone. Utority asks what happens if she escapes. Medius says that in every future she's seen, Censura never becomes a problem after this battle. Utority asks if she's checked more than a week ahead. Medius admits she hasn't. Lately, she's been rewinding only hours instead of days because she's constantly fixing small mistakes. Utority warns her that's the wrong approach. He compares it to drawing a picture. If you keep correcting every tiny detail instead of finishing the whole drawing, you'll never complete it. Medius insists she'll keep trying until she finds a future where no hero dies. Utority tells her a perfect future doesn't exist. She can't save everyone. Medius refuses to give up. For now, Utority agrees to follow her orders as chairman, but he asks her to look 1 week into the future and confirm whether Censura survives. Medius checks the future. Instead, she witnesses Tatsujin killing Hassan, leaving her completely shocked. She then confirms Censura won't cause any future problems and will remain imprisoned. Utority accepts that answer and asks the next question. Do we win this war? Medius says it looks like they'll win, but if things continue this way, several heroes will die. Utority says that's unavoidable. Medius disagrees. If they can save those heroes, they should. Even if she has to spend all of her remaining time, she'll keep trying. Utority reminds her she also promised to save enough time to help him win the next election. Medius says she hasn't forgotten. Lippus overhears the conversation and asks what election they're talking about. Utority brushes her off and tells the rabbit to stop asking questions and move to the next battlefield. Back at headquarters, Prof asks Medius whether they're winning. Medius says it appears they are. Mute suggests they now focus on reducing hero casualties, but Medius senses something is wrong. Several major enemies still haven't appeared. She realizes Stiffness, Terapier, Ahura, Sinka, and Hwang haven't joined the battle at all. That means they're planning something else. Medius decides she needs to look further into the future. Meanwhile, the heroes continue following her strategy and keep defeating the villains. At Sinka's hideout, Sinka gathers her strongest fighters. She asks the executors if they're ready. She says they've all noticed that something strange is happening with time. Medius believes time is on her side, but Sinka declares that time is actually on their side. She orders everyone to move out and show the heroes who they're really fighting. Achilla accepts the order. Baruz asks when Gangyu, the man who defeated Hwang, will enter the war. Maldity says it's been a long time since her last real battle. Tatsujin says she's looking forward to facing Karfigure. With that, Sinka deploys the B4-ranked criminals onto the battlefield, raising the war to an entirely new level. Hassan and Pocket defeat all the B2 level villains in their area. Pocket says the battle was surprisingly easy and asks if Hassan really doesn't want her to use her ability. Hassan tells her it's better if she doesn't. He assumes the Equality members are already handling the B3 and B4 criminals, so they'll just clean up the remaining B2 enemies. Suddenly, a man approaches them. He introduces himself, leaving both Hassan and Pocket stunned. It's Baruz, a B4-ranked criminal. Baruz is a bounty hunter from Tragedy, the place where villains gather and set bounties on heroes. Pocket can't believe a B4 criminal is here. Hassan stays calm. He trusts Medius had a reason for sending them here. Besides, his hammer can seal any criminal's ability, whether they're B4 or B5. He plans for Pocket to distract Baruz while he lands a hit on the whorl at the back of Baruz's head. Baruz laughs. He asks what would happen if someone had two whorls instead of one. Hassan is shocked to see Baruz actually has two. Baruz says Hassan would have to hit both at the same time. Hassan argues everyone only has one center point, even bald people. Baruz jokingly asks about bald people. Hassan explains bald people still have a center. It's just easier to find. Baruz says that's new information. Hassan then jokes that instead of teasing bald people, Baruz should see a doctor because two whorls can be a sign of hair loss. That instantly makes Baruz furious. He says Hassan just told him something he never wanted to know and swears to kill him. Hassan looks confused, wondering what he said wrong. Pocket begins transforming. When her transformation finishes, both Hassan and Baruz react with disgust. Baruz realizes she's a physical type user and says fighting her should be interesting. A flashback shows Kingston explaining physical type users to Gangyu. Unlike summoning and special types, who often control external energy, most physical type users control internal energy. A person's natural potential is decided at birth, but many give up training before reaching it. Kingston compares the body to a vessel. If the vessel is too small, energy overflows. Training expands and refines that vessel, allowing users to control their energy. Once mastered, they can even infuse that energy into objects. Back in the present, Baruz infuses energy into his bullets and fires. Hassan and Pocket dodge, but the bullets continue flying and destroy multiple buildings behind them. Both heroes are shocked by the destructive power. Baruz then channels energy into his rope, trapping both of them. He explains the rope is now stronger than steel, making escape nearly impossible. Just as he's about to finish them, Gangyu suddenly appears. He drives a powerful punch into Baruz's stomach, sending him flying. Watching from nearby, Kingston applauds. He tells Gangyu his growth is impressive and reminds him to keep moving while feeling the flow of his energy. Looking at Baruz, Kingston says he's the perfect warm-up opponent. As Baruz gets back up, Kingston gives Gangyu one final instruction. This time, he wants Gangyu to combine his special ability with his physical techniques, just like they practiced. But there's one condition. If Gangyu defeats Baruz in a single punch, he fails the training. He must use at least 2 or 3 different techniques. Gangyu agrees. Baruz, realizing he's being treated like a training dummy, gets irritated. Meanwhile, Kingston sits back to enjoy the fight. He tells his disciple to show him what he's learned. Tragedy is a bounty network for villains. Just like the Hero Association ranks heroes by tiers, tragedy assigns bounty rankings to them. Baruz once earned the biggest reward by killing Cones, an equality candidate. After collecting the bounty, he retired and only checked bounty lists for fun. One day, a new name catches his attention, Gangyu. Even though Gangyu is an equality member, he still has no bounty. Curious, Baruz asks Tragedy about it. They explain they can't assign one because Gangyu has never fought anyone publicly, so they have no data. They ask Baruz to test Gangyu himself, but he declines. Back in the present, Baruz tells Gangyu he originally wasn't interested in him. But after hearing Gangyu defeated Hwang, he came to see how strong he really is. Baruz opens fire. Gangyu casually deflects every bullet with his bare hands. Then he combines his special ability with a punch, launching Baruz into the air. Gangyu follows up with a barrage of punches. Baruz finally understands why Gangyu never received a bounty. No one could accurately measure his strength. Gangyu finishes him with one final punch, killing Baruz instantly. Hassan is stunned. He can't believe a B4 criminal was defeated so effortlessly. He knew Gangyu had been training, but never imagined his teacher was Kingston. Hassan immediately asks Kingston to train him too. Pocket also volunteers. Kingston bluntly tells both of them to get lost. Hassan realizes Medius sent them there because she already knew Gangyu would handle Baruz. Pocket admits she thought they were going to die. Hearing Medius' name reminds Kingston of her. He realizes her ability lets her experience different futures and return, allowing her to shape events however she wants. He calls that ability boring and considers killing her. Then he remembers his conversation with Bezit. Bezit entrusted Gangyu to Kingston, but warned that if humanity faced another crisis, Gangyu might no longer remain under Kingston's care. Kingston asks if Bezit is threatening him. Bezit bows his head and says he's only asking for a favor. He'll do anything to save humanity. Kingston respects his resolve and agrees to wait. He says he'll keep observing for now, but if things become boring, he'll kill Medius. Because of that promise, Kingston postpones his plan. However, after Medius rewinds time by an entire month, Kingston decides he'll definitely kill her. Then he suddenly realizes something. He quietly says, "So, this is what's going to happen." Gangyu, still training nearby, asks what happened. Kingston notices Gangyu hasn't reached the level needed to sense it yet. He tells him it's nothing and orders him to keep training. Kingston says Gangyu's techniques have become even more refined. Privately, he thinks Gangyu still has much further to go. Real battles will sharpen his senses. It's going to be even more entertaining than Kingston expected. He tells Gangyu it's time to find their next opponent. Medius announces that Hassan has confirmed Gangyu has entered the war and already eliminated Baruz. The professor is shocked. Mute says that's exactly what they expected from Gangyu. Ethiopia believes they might finally be able to save more heroes. Medius decides to rewind time again, slowly solving the battle like a giant puzzle. Meanwhile, the news reaches the heroes. Authority says only Hwang is left to eliminate. Suddenly, Maldity appears and mocks him for acting like the other villains don't exist. Authority corrects her, calling himself the future Hero Association chairman. Across the battlefield, the remaining matchups begin. Myanji faces Vixen and Ju Young. Ju Young promises to send her to their master, and Myanji welcomes the challenge. Lippis confronts a Swede and Pekkenu. She vows to capture them alive. Pekkenu begs not to be killed, and Lippis assures her she won't. Alter Ego faces Vidi and Achilla. When they call him number 4, Alter Ego angrily corrects them. Carfigure finally meets Tatsujin, and both charge into battle. Elsewhere, Gangyu encounters Canis and Gato. Kingston notices they've removed their limiters, proving they aren't foolish. He stops them, saying he has something to tell Gangyu first. When Gato objects, Kingston's killing intent instantly terrifies both of them. He tells Gangyu to keep fighting because they're perfect training partners. Gangyu asks when he'll finally be allowed to stop holding back. Kingston refuses. He says Gangyu has become much stronger, but it's still not enough. Right now, no one on this battlefield can match him except Kingston himself, but he's only talking about this battlefield. Gangyu doesn't understand. Kingston says he still can't sense what's coming and needs finer control over his energy. He promises Gangyu will understand soon. Kingston then allows the fight to begin, but immediately pins Canis to the ground. He forces Gato into a one-on-one battle with Gangyu. Canis can't move. Kingston assures him he won't hurt him, but if Gato tries to save Canis instead of fighting Gangyu, he'll kill Canis instantly. If Gato defeats Gangyu, however, Kingston promises to let both of them leave alive. Confused, Gato asks what he really wants. Kingston replies that before he dies, he wants to witness humans fighting at their absolute peak. He calls it an old man's final wish. He orders Gangyu to use as many techniques as possible, instead of ending the fight in one hit. Gangyu agrees. Privately, Kingston wonders if this will be enough for Gangyu to win the coming war. Elsewhere, Cinco watches everything unfold. Behind her stands Wang, now fully grown into an adult. He asks if Gang Yu is on the battlefield. Sinka says it appears so. Smiling, Wang says it's finally time for their rematch. At the same time, Ahura is shown carrying several people with his ability. Wang smiles confidently. Gang Yu remains completely focused. Both Sinka and Medius are now ready for the decisive war. Gato charges straight at Gang Yu.